Now coming in, if you wish to speak, please make sure that you enter your name on the list outside. The information. I call this special session of the City Council of the City of Glen Rose to order at 8:30 on July 9th, 2016. I will now call a roll. Councilman Jones.
Here.
Councilman Marquez.
Here.
Councilman Moore.
Here.
Councilwoman Ramsey.
Here.
Councilman Mitchell.
Present.
All council members are present. We do have a quorum. At this time, we will move into the public comments. Prior to us going into public comments, there are a few rules that I need to make sure that are clear to everyone. Citizens wanting to comment must wait to be recognized by the mayor. After being recognized, come to the podium and clearly state your full name and address. And this is to assist the city secretary, so speak slowly. All comments are addressed to the mayor, not individual council members. The mayor can only respond to your comments with specific factual information or existing policy. Negative, inflammatory, or disparaging remarks will not be tolerated. Everyone in the council chambers or in the vicinity of the council chambers, if we have anyone out in the wings, is reminded to turn off your cell phone or place them on vibrate so as not to disturb this meeting. Council members are reminded that they are not to text or browse on their cell phones or similar type devices during the meeting. Each citizen will be allowed 3 minutes to speak. Citizens may not give their time to another speaker. Citizens may select a spokesperson to speak on behalf of the group. However, the same time constraints apply for that spokesperson as they do for an individual. So in other words, if 5 people select one person, they don't get 15 minutes. That one person is speaking within that 3-minute time period. At this time, I will open the floor for public comment and in order to speed things along, I am going to go down this list. At the very end, I will ask if there is anyone who did not sign this list, just as a double check in case people do want to change their minds. All right? First person on the list is Sandra Ramsey. Ms. Ramsey, if you please. Thank you.
My name is Sandra Ramsey. I live at 104 Apache Court. I am not speaking as a council person. I'm speaking as a taxpayer and citizen. I would like to read to everyone the mission statement and goals for Oakdale Park, because this is what the citizens and council need to keep in the forefront when reporting visions, suggestions, and concerns that are shared here today. This meeting is about facts and policies to ensure that these goals are achieved. And this includes myself. I'm talking about myself also. The ultimate responsibility rests on the council's shoulders. Policies start with council, but it has to be implemented by administration, giving guidance and direction to the park manager, who in turn passes it on to his employees and assures that they carry it out, which in turn demonstrates the customer service that our goal and mission statements are about our historic Glen Rose Park. The mission statement, our mission is to provide excellent accommodations for our guests, friendly, encouraging staff. Oakdale takes pride in offering a clean, relaxing park with quality service for all our guests to enjoy. And it's important that your suggestions or visions on that. But the main part is our goals. We need to live up to those goals. To provide excellent customer service for all guests. To establish a clean, safe, and family-friendly environment. To work in unity as a team for success in all areas. And to provide historic Oakdale Park back into an acceptable venue for all to enjoy. to provide traveling guests and local community members, and that includes us as citizens and taxpayers, to have an enjoyable, entertaining place to relax. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilwoman Ramsey. Dwayne Johnson. Mr. Johnson has a handout. We'll wait for a few minutes for the council members to receive that prior to starting the time clock. Mr. Johnson, if you please clearly state your name and address for the record.
My name's Dwayne Johnson. I live at 1664B, County Road 2010 in Glen Rose. My concerns are, I know that Kelly came to y'all, it'd be 2 years ago this summer, about us having our 4-H jackpot down here at Oakdale Park in the 5 acres that's never used for anything but parking. I think they had a dog trial down there. You know, it was, you know, when she came to city council, whatever, and talked to them, it was okay that we could use the thing. And we didn't use it, had to set it up, took us about a year to get that thing set up. We had our first one last year, and you can see on the handout on the bottom there, we had our first jackpot there, we had about 105 entries. It's kind of estimated on what we thought we brought into the city of Glen Rose as far as tax revenue. You know, a lot of this is based off because all of us jackpot, we go, we haul kids, we know what we do. We go, you're at jackpot all day, you're hungry, you're thirsty, you're going to go eat when you finish. About 1 out of 3 of them, you'll see them at stations filling up, buying drinks, whatever. You know, they're spending money in town. You know, with that little jackpot last year, I think it's estimated that we brought about $7,100 into Glen Rose for a first-time jackpot. You know, this next one, we expect to double it. More realistically, we'll increase the entries by 50 people. You know, so that's estimated that we're going to bring about $10,000 in for a 1-day, 6-hour event. Plus, it helps our 4-H program. We made $2,000 clear last year. Hope to make 3 to 4. You know, had this set up where we could use it. I reserved the thing for last year for this year. Had 2 weekends reserved because we weren't sure what we were going to make. Went down and talked to David to just let him know what was going on so he would be in the clear. I get this email that you also have a copy of. I've been in business for 20-something years. There's not a chance in hell I would send an email like that to one of my customers. I don't care if I had that customer for 10 years. It's uncalled for. It's not necessary. It's not good publicity for Oakdale Park. If it'd be anybody but me or somebody from around, it would have made us mad enough we wouldn't be back. You know, we spend a lot of our time with the 4-H. We try to promote Oakdale Park. We try to get them to rent RV spots, do all this stuff. Most people that came down there last year did not even know that Oakdale Park was there. The first thing they said was, "This is neat." We didn't even realize this is here. So we're hoping this year you'll have more participation in the RV park, you know, deal, the swimming, all that stuff we try to promote. You know, but it seems like we've hit a roadblock where someone's trying to discourage us from coming down there. You know, and I want to bring that to y'all's attention. You know, I think communication, a simple phone call, what did y'all do in the past, or, you know, what can we do to help, would have been a lot more beneficial to everybody.
Thank you very much. My apologies if I mispronounce this name. The next individual is, looks like either an Oani or a Danny Aikman.
It's Ani Aikman.
Ani Aikman, thank you, sir.
Yes, my name is Ani Aikman, resident of Glen Rose, Texas. 1005 Northeast Bernard Street. I live next door to the park, and I've lived there, I think, 41 years. I've seen a lot of people come and go over that time. Since the ownership has changed, I believe it's evident to make mention that businesses fell off. Is that true? Can anybody verify that?
That I am not sure of, but even if it appears that way, perception is an important part.
I know some, I'm sorry.
Go ahead, please.
I know some people just recently was at the park, and they witnessed customers leaving because of inadequate service. I believe it would be safe to say inadequate service. They was planning on using the pool, they was planning on other things that just didn't happen.
Do you know any particulars or specifics about that, or, you know, what we could, anyone that we may be able to contact to get specifics about that, Mr. Bateman?
No, I don't know that, I'm sorry, I don't.
Okay.
But with all the investment of the park and everything that has been done to upgrade it and make it attraction to Glen Rose to bring in business, we don't need this kind of loss. And I know what it is to be held accountable for my actions as an employee, for jobs. In particular, nuclear power plant, if you don't do your job, you falsify information, that can lead to imprisonment. Also, as employees of the sheriff department in Johnson County, Somervell County, you don't do your paperwork right, you give leniency to anybody, that could be terms for prison. So, the people who are held accountable needs a reprimanding or replacing. Thank you.
Thank you very much. I do have one quick question for you, Mr. Aikman.
Yes, ma'am.
If you come back up for just a second. You made an allusion to falsification of documents or information.
I don't know if that's happened to this department or not.
Okay.
I have no idea.
That's why I wanted to
Just
get
for the
clarification.
just for the record of saying that everything has to be documented and recorded, and there's no chance that there should ever that happen.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you. The next individual on the list is young Lutweiler.
My name's Young Lutweiler. I live at 1007 Northeast Bernard Street. Again, I live next door to Oakdale Park also. Here recently, as a matter of fact, back in June, I know at least one family reunion was held there, and almost all of you wanted to pull out because the pool was not ready. Normally the pool is ready come Memorial Day. I don't know what happened this year, but you've lost over a month of revenue due to inadequacy of the pool maintenance. I don't know what it was, whether it was the chemicals, whether it was the water or what, but there's no reason that should have taken place, because that is one of the big things that happen in this community every year, because everybody wants to come down and go swimming. I know because of that, I've seen multiple people out there in front of the house over there at Big Rocks, as a matter of fact, this year. So much, in fact, last week and the weekend before, you can barely get down the road because everybody parked on either side of the road. Which is, you know, I understand that if that's where they want to go, but if the pool had been open, part of those people would have been over at the pool, I'm sure. I don't know if they were even aware that the pool had been open, if it is open again yet. I also know that during one of the family reunions, one of the people happened to be wheelchair bound. And you have a kitchen over there, the kitchen area that's rented out, what have you. It needs wheelchair accessible entry there at the front. As a matter of fact, the individual actually fell out of the wheelchair because of the slope there, not having the right slope, things of that nature.
Is this the wheelchair, or I'm sorry, the facility that's the enclosed building, or is it the large pavilion with
It's
the
the
building?
enclosed building.
The convention center?
If you want to
What
call
we
it
refer
convention
to, it's
center, that's fine.
up by the front of the road?
No, it's not the old skating rink.
Okay,
It's the one back over there. I don't know the name of it, but it's got a big kitchen in it. It's a fairly large area, probably an area at least this big.
sounds like it's the hangout. It's a,
It could
yeah,
be.
okay, that
But
sounds
it
like.
needs a
the one.
wheelchair accessibility there.
Okay, continue please, I'm sorry.
That's a couple of things also, as far as, at some point in time, I guess we need to find out what the deal is on the road or entryway over there by my place and by Ani Aikman's place, that I keep getting nasty grams from somebody saying I shouldn't be parking my trailer there, because missed the dump one time, my trailer was parked there, and the next thing I know, I've got the code enforcement man coming up trying to say, I need to move my vehicle, or because it's a fire lane. That's false information. A fire lane is required to be as minimum 20 feet wide, and that's per code.
Okay. And that is a code enforcement issue. City Administrator, could you please note that and make sure that
That has already been addressed.
okay, if you can, I'll let you deal with that as a separate. Okay, the pool is open. Again, Mr. Lutweiler, it's been open since, what was the date
24 June?
24 June. Okay, it was closed for replacement of the chlorine gas system, which is no longer allowed under Texas statutes and ordinances. And that was what we had. It was not discovered until about the middle of May that it was prohibited, and we took immediate action, okay, to do that. And so as rapidly as possible. Prior to that, we had been working on issues with respect to housing the chlorine system. And that was anticipated work that would be done during the off-season. This replacing and getting those chlorine gas bottles out of there became a far more important issue. And it was done as rapidly as possible.
How long have we known about the chlorine gas not being allowed per
That the
state?
chlorine gas was not permitted, was found out by the park manager based upon learning about the actual renovation date of the pool, which brought it under the post-2003 codes,
Yes.
post-2003 codes, and he immediately brought that to the attention of the city administrator and myself. And the bids to replace that with a totally acceptable, safe system for the users of the pool was immediately implemented. Thank you. Next individual on the list is Sue Oldenburg.
Christie, can I have you hand out these, please, to the mayor, and I have one also for Mr. Paul and Mr. Water. And there's no need to look at them until after you get home and like that, because I do not address any issues of what I'm gonna say.
Mayor, council, and
Man, and those two, too, Mr. Ivan, and, I'm sorry, sorry, Judy. Most of you know me, but I'm Sue Oldenburg, 609 Nancy Drive. Mayor, councilman, I want you to look out in front of you and look at the people that are here and care about historic Oakdale Park. We are speaking to you today to let you know that what we want for historic park, and we are the ones that support it and the town. The city has a gem in historic Oakdale. Let's polish it and make it shine. The one thing we can do, and it costs nothing, absolutely nothing, is customer service. There is little that good customer service skills cannot fix. And what does it cost? Nothing. a polite hello, a polite answer, anything like that is better than what we have been receiving. And it doesn't cost us anything. If we make a mistake, then yes, we have to pay for it, just like in our own lives. If we break something, we have to replace it, and it's costly to us. I've heard it said over and over again by certain individuals that historic Oakdale is not profitable. How do you tell when people come into the stores and spend their money? How many sales dollars do we generate through Oakdale? But if Oakdale isn't bringing in enough people, it is important to make a profit. I'm not downplaying that. I'm just saying that it's very difficult to state whether Oakdale made a profit or not. I guess what we're asking is all of us work together to make Oakdale, historic Oakdale, what it can be. Give your staff direction. Make sure that it's followed through. Don't give them direction. I have never seen such a perfect, caring, giving town, and people that are willing to work and volunteer. Use them. Give us the direction and the tools, and let us make historic Oakdale the destination that people want to come back for the hospitality and the customer service. Let us shine. And it cost us nothing. Customer service cost us nothing. I do want to correct a statement that the mayor made, if I may. You stated that you didn't know about the chlorine gas until mid-May. I believe that Mr. Iman brought that up in the January meeting that I was present at.
Actually, in the January meeting, the issue that Mr. Iman brought up in his report had to do with the housing of the equipment and the chlorine gas that was there.
Well, that's not
Okay,
what I
which was
understood, so
different.
I apologize.
And that's fine. The actual, and that was prior to his being aware that the chlorine gas was prohibited under the new regulations
And the
since the
final
renovation.
thing I have to say is just together, we can make historic Oakdale shine, but we need cooperation. We don't need discouragement. We do not need to be treated rudely when we simply ask questions. Thank you.
Thank you. Jim Chapman.
My name is Jim Chapman. I live in Cedar Hill, Texas at 100 Capricorn Street. And I appreciate the opportunity to speak before you today. I apologize for my memory because I'm going to have to read this, otherwise I'll never get all my thoughts out. Oakdale Park in the city of Glen Rose has a long history of bluegrass music and bluegrass festivals. The Biloxi River Bluegrass Association, of which I'm a member, as I thought about this, we are goodwill ambassadors for Oakdale Park, and by direct extension, the city of Glen Rose. And we do this by inviting our friends to join us on the third Saturday of each month, because that's when we have our jam session out here. We tell them of the beauty of Oakdale Park and how much we enjoy camping there. So it is a direct benefit to the park. And so that would be the first reason. We also visit merchants of the town, and I apologize if I leave somebody's business out. I've just kind of listed the ones that I've gone to. And if I've gone there, then the other association members have also. We got Davis and Brookshire's and Dollar General and Big Cup Eatery and Debbie's and Green Pickle and Hammond's and Dairy Queen and Chicken Express and Burger King and the hardware store and the auto parts store. And go on and on. But number two reason that we should be considered as goodwill ambassadors is that each month we collect money for the Somervell County Food Bank. And so you may be thinking, well, that's county and we're city. However, the people that work in that building probably live here in Glen Rose. And they associate our donation as the Biloxi River Bluegrass Association with Oakdale Park. And so that's good public relations. Reason number 3 is very much like reason number 2. As the Biloxi River Bluegrass Association, we give 2 $250 scholarships to the Glen Rose Independent School District each year. So I want to shift subjects now and ask the question of you, the City Council. You have a Fall Bluegrass Association, Fall Bluegrass Festival coming up right around the corner, first week in October. Most, if not all of us, travel to different bluegrass festivals around the country, and in each festival, there are multiple flyers promoting festivals. When can we expect from you some flyers that we can pass out at these festivals that we go to? Now remember, we are Google ambassadors for Oakdale Park in the city of Glen Rose. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. City Secretary, would you please note at this time that I am going to, since we are about halfway through the list, I am going to extend the public comment period, because I do feel it important that the people who are on this list have an opportunity. Dale Bronner.
My name is Dale Bronner. I live at 221 Campbell Road, Maypearl, Texas. And I do appreciate the opportunity to stand before you, because 40 years ago, I had a 14-year-old daughter, and I heard about this music that's going on in Glen Rose, Texas. I asked her, would she like to go? She loved music. She and I came to Glen Rose. We fell in love with bluegrass music, really. This year, she was 54. So that's 40 years. I've been coming to Glen Rose, and I tell you, folks, every time I went through the gate, I felt like I was coming home. I love Oakdale Park, and I love Glen Rose, Texas. I felt proud to be in Oakdale. I knew that I was there to have good times with friends, and felt comfortable and safe in the park, and it's been a great experience. I have friends in Texas, Arkansas, Oklahoma, and then there's maybe some in Louisiana that I met at Oakdale Park through these 40 years. Like I said, I was introduced to bluegrass music 40 years ago at Oakdale. I went home and I told my wife that day, that very day, I said, I found my music that I love to play. And I had played music ever since high school. But anyway, the music was great, the park was great. Like I said, I felt welcome. And I surely feel that bluegrass at this point is not welcome to a point. And I would like to talk in the seconds I got left about the festival that Mr. Chapman brought up. We have a festival scheduled for October, the first weekend in October. And folks, I'm here to tell you, I know and understand that the festival belongs to the city. It does. It always has, since the city has taken over. There's lots of work that needs to be done to get this festival off the ground in October. And Biloxi River Bluegrass Association that I have here, we are willing to help. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm sorry, that was Mr. Jim Chapman?
Dale Bronner.
Or Dale Bronner. Mr. Chapman, no. Mr. Chapman?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, have I already called you?
Yes, ma'am.
I thought, okay, I've jumped over. My apologies. Mr. Green, W.B. Green?
My name's William Green, 1009 County Road 302. I just had a couple of things, these may have already been addressed that I've heard commented on, and one of them is the fees at Oakdale Park at the pool had gone up, and I feel like that probably $3 for Somervell County residents was adequate on that. And also the time, what time do they close the pool and what days is the pool open?
Okay, with respect to the fees, I'm receiving indications from my city administrator and park manager that there have been no changes in the fees.
Okay.
Okay.
That's been addressed, I just heard that, and that's why I was asking.
With respect to the hours, I believe it is, 10 to 5?
10 to 6.
10 to 6.
It is 10 to 6?
That is Tuesday through Sunday. The pool is closed on Monday. However, there is a special needs group that does utilize the pool on Monday.
I would like to, I think on some of the comments that I've heard, July and August, 6 o'clock in the afternoon, especially on the weekends, Friday and Saturday primarily, 7 o'clock would be, might be considered. You might think about that. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Next individual on the list is Robert Strickland. Mr. Strickland.
Good morning. My name is Robert J. Strickland. I live at 105 Ridge Court, the city of Glen Rose. Please excuse my appearance, but I was working in the yard, and this meeting is very important. I was on the city council when the park was purchased. My statements would resolve why we bought the park. Number one, we wanted a city park for the city and for the citizens of Glen Rose to use. We also wanted to capture and keep the historic park as it is operated and was a motorhome park. And we wanted to do something for the businesses of the city to bring people to the city. We thought this is our wisest method of doing it. And by promoting and music venues and bringing people from outside the county into our area to spend their funds. We knew and would hope at some point that the park would be self-sufficient, but it was not the objective. We felt the sales tax revenue would also promote and help support the park. The park was purchased with the funds from the 4B. There was no money coming out of the city tax to buy the park, and the bonds are being paid by the 4B, which comes from additional sales tax sent back to us from the state. So it's sort of a win-win situation. You've got to bring people in. You've got to support the venues. And that meant you have to put a little bit of money into it. In any venue I've been around the United States, it takes time to build those things. But once they're built, they're self-supporting. I would just hope that the council people will look at this as a thing for the citizens of Glen Rose. I mean, we redid the pool, we worked on redoing the whole park, we worked on cutting down the number of spaces there and making it more operational, efficient. We redid the housings. Everything is up to snuff. It just needs to be current. I am concerned if we have problems, and I've heard from many citizens, we have problems with the operational of the park and the attitude of the park. And I think this is where the city council needs to give, and the mayor needs to give direction to the employees of the city as to they are first impressions of people coming into the city. And there are people who have come to that park and then have relocated and bought homes in this town. And then help in the tax bases and running of this town. You really got to look at what you're doing there. That's your first contact with people, and it needs to be pleasant and proper. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Strickland. Pete Gruber?
My name's Pete Gruber, and I live at 105 Summit View here in Glen Rose. When we see Oakdale Park as a quality of life issue, we supported the purchase of the park because it provided a great asset to the community. First, it's an historical attraction. Perhaps even more important is that it's there for residents to enjoy. Provides a pool, a meeting place for such events as a Thursday night community dinner, provides space for exercise groups. The pool is heavily utilized by citizens. The park used to provide space for club meetings such as the Wood Carvers. We did not approve the tax dollars for the park to solely fund a public funded RV park. We don't need that. There's other RV parks in town. So we see it as a quality of life issue, something for the citizens. Now we see venues such as the Bluegrass Festival and Dulcimer Festival as being extremely important to the community. First, they attract out-of-towners and showcase Glen Rose, and we are proof of that. We first heard of Glen Rose through the annual Dulcimer Festival. We ended up retiring here 9 years ago. So I think that's been maybe about $10,000 in city taxes, kind of intangible, maybe we don't think of when we talk about is the park profitable or not. These events are also well attended by folks from all over Texas and surrounding states. Going to Glen Rose is what they call it. It's hard to believe that the lodging, food, and gas purchased by these folks has not been a great benefit to Glen Rose. Now it's our understanding that both of these events did not feel appreciated after their visits this year. We need the busted to keep them and lure more such events to Glen Rose, not figure out reasons why we don't need them. And once those kind of events are gone, you don't get them back. Finally, we did write a letter on May 9th this year to the city administrator with our concerns about the continuation of the Dulcimer Festival in Glen Rose. Copies were distributed to new and existing council members. We heard via the grapevine that the event organizer had been contacted and issues discussed, but we never had any kind of courtesy contact from the city administrator's office. Sometimes the lack of response leads us to wonder whether or not citizen input really is valued. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Gruber. Diane Gruber?
I'm Diane Gruber, live at 105 Summit View in Glen Rose, and that's my husband. And I'm going to, he mentioned that we wrote a letter and we sent it out to everybody, all of you that are here now, people that were not here who passed. The only responses that we've gotten at all were people that we happened to see in town, and we went up to them and asked them. And like my husband said, we're very disappointed with that. Just a phone call, an email saying, we got your letter, thank you very much for writing it, but we got nothing. So I'm going to read the letter. As taxpayers who supported the purchase of rehabilitation of Oakdale Park by the city and then support of ongoing operation of the park by public tax dollars, we are very concerned to learn that Lone Star State Dulcimer Festival is considering leaving Oakdale Park after 35 years. We attended the festival the weekend of May 6th through 9th and heard numerous complaints. For the first time in our attendance at the festival, no concessions were available. We heard complaints that what appeared to be arbitrary rules were imposed against festival attendees with no advance warning. One even appeared to involve where wheelchairs might be placed. We heard prospective campers were told no more sites were available when apparently at that time sites were available. Finally, and perhaps most disturbing, we were told Oakdale Park representative told the festival representative that the park didn't really need their business. I find that shameful. Festivals such as the Dulcimer and the Bluegrass bring in significant dollars to the city. It is hard to believe that the city didn't lose some dollars by not selling concessions to hundreds of festival goers over that 3-day period. It's hard to believe restaurants, hotels, motels, gas stations, and other local venues will not lose money if the festivals go elsewhere. We had friends from the metro who camped at the park, visited the local hardware store, ate at local Coyote, River House Grill, etc. Our efforts at marketing Glen Rose throughout the Southwest and Midwest really take a hit if we cannot keep what we have gotten already. These festivals are very important in showcasing Glen Rose. The folks that come to the festival even refer to it as going to Glen Rose. We are proof of how important that is as an introduction to Glen Rose and all it has to offer. We have now lived here in Glen Rose for 9 years, and we love it. We have been active in our church, served as officers of service clubs and art league, volunteered at the food bank, volunteered for community events, purchased many local services, used the local healthcare facilities many times, and have dutifully voted in every election. The first we ever heard of Glen Rose was through the Dulcimer Festival that we attended in Missouri. We decided to visit Glen Rose and loved it and ended up retiring here. Do we really want to lose this type of exposure? We also need to be aware of the type of entertainment the Dulcimer and Bluegrass Festivals provide. The folks that come like good music and are basically family-oriented, religiously respectful, and have dollars to spend. Just the type of people we want in Glen Rose. We respectfully ask you that you look into this situation and try to discern exactly what caused these issues. Our understanding is that they were not present in the past. We then ask that the longtime spokesperson for the event, Dana Hamilton, be contacted by someone in authority who can explore the concerns and make the case for why the Dulcimer Festival should keep coming to Glen Rose. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Tom Osborne?
I'm Tom Osborne from 802 Southwest Bernard Street, Denver, Texas. I've heard all the reasons why we should keep putting money into Oakdale. And I'd just like to go back to speak for some of the people that voted against Oakdale. 3 times it was voted down not to spend any money on Oakdale. And they went to the 4B and got the 4B to do it, which was in the round, and it was against the wishes of the people of Glen Rose at the time. I would just like to say that this is one of the reasons why the city, in my humble opinion, has no business being in the RV business. And that's basically what Oakdale Park is, besides the swimming pool, which is, you know, there's a lot of unhappy people about that right at the moment. But now that we're in that business, it'll be interesting to see how it goes on from this point. So far, that I can tell, we were told that it would be in a break-even situation 3 or 4 years after. I've heard all the pros and cons one way or the other, that it's making money, it's not making money. All I know is we keep pouring money into it. It's taxpayer money. And I don't know how many people go to Oakdale from Glen Rose other than to swim. Some have a few family reunions, I don't know. I've heard complaints both ways. I know that there's still a lot of people that are very unhappy that this situation keeps coming up, that Oakdale has all these problems. And so that's why I'm sitting here listening to see what's going to go on. And I thank you for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Osborne. We have reached the end. Wait a minute, let me turn the page here. We have just spoken. Paul Stimson.
Stimson, yes. My name is Paul Stimson. I live at 9741 Forest Drive in Burleson, which is actually in Lillian, Texas. I'm the chaplain of the Biloxi River Bluegrass Association. Although the association itself is fairly new, bluegrass is not. As Dale mentioned earlier, we have been here over 40 years, or most of us have, a lot of us have. Oakdale Park has always been a part of bluegrass, and bluegrass has always been a part of Oakdale Park. We've had bands play regularly down at the town square to try to bring more people into the area. We provide money and food to the local food bank. We provide scholarships, as is mentioned, to the local schools. We bring campers into the park, not only at festival time, but throughout the year, as we have a monthly show or a monthly program here at the park. We're also customers, as has been mentioned, to local restaurants and shops in the area. I think we deserve to be treated a little bit more with a level of respect. We've had some problems with, I think as was mentioned earlier, just a little bit of respect from the people that run the park would help us. We deserve to be treated more as partners and less as stepchildren. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, I have now reached the end of the list of those individuals who signed up. As I stated earlier, at this time, are there any individuals in the audience who did not sign the list who do wish to speak? At this time, I close the public comment at 9:16. Council, I'm going to recess for 10 minutes to allow for a break before we move into the workshop. 9:16, please return to council chambers at 9:26. Let's make that 9:27. And I do invite audience members to please come back and remain for the workshop. Okay, the next item on the agenda, we are now moving into the workshop. Okay, during the workshop, it's an interchange of information, ideas amongst the council members that will address some of the issues. You may also hear some information that may be helpful to you. So by all means, please do stay and listen, but we will not be taking any public comment during that discussion process, all right? The first item is discussion of the park equipment. This will go over, and it's not all inclusive, it's intended to get an update on the status of the condition of city-owned or acquired equipment that is essential to the day-to-day operation and maintenance of Oakdale Park, to include but not limited to vehicles, grounds maintenance equipment, pool equipment, laundry, housekeeping equipment, large appliances, etc. Basically, the large or high-value equipment items, especially those that are either in need of replacement or major repair now or in the foreseeable future. And for that, I'm going to go to Mr. Iman to get basically a status update, and then council will ask questions, suggestions, thoughts to that afterwards. Mr. Iman?
Mayor, in regards to vehicles, we've got two older vehicles. We've got two older pickups out there. In the next couple, 3 years, will probably be replaced by at least something newer. They don't have to be brand new. As far as the laundry equipment goes, the commercial housekeeping equipment, I've had 4 plumbers out, gotten 3 bids, accepted one of them, and nobody has come out to do the job. So we are still waiting on that. We are also still waiting on them to redo the women's bathroom behind the stage. That was also included in the same 2 bids. I was given direction by the city administrator to have that done by Fall Bluegrass Festival, and at this point, I don't know that it's going to be finished. Maintenance, as far as the maintenance of
facilities.
Maintenance is a separate subject. We say focus on just the status of the equipment. How is furniture, roofs?
Roofs are good, got one in, that's gonna probably need to be replaced, on the outdoor kitchen. Got trusses that are rotting out on the outside, don't know how far that rot goes. I have a bid to have that done, and I believe it was $1,500, but that does not include the trusses that are running. Other than that, the guest laundry room was upgraded in April. That laundry equipment is good to go. We are still waiting on the install for the,
Was the first laundry, the main laundry facility that you were talking about?
yeah, that's the commercial laundry facility for the housekeepers. That equipment is here. That equipment was purchased in, I believe it was 2014, and it got delivered in January. And it's still pending install.
Okay, furniture in the cabins is
We're
good. What about now? I know that the diving board needed to be removed, and we'll discuss that under the maintenance portion more in depth. The feasibility of putting a new diving board in the future.
I doubt it, to be real honest, because the pool's not deep enough. The pool needs to be 13.6. Pool needs to be 13.6 for that diving board. Pool's only 10, and that's according to the new state requirements.
Could that end the pool facilitate some other type of water entertainment equipment?
Yeah, we could probably, we could install another slide at that end of the pool, or whatever council saw fit, pending the research and as far as the depth of the pool is concerned.
And what about the pumping equipment, circulation equipment in the pool? Are there issues with respect to that equipment that need future attendance?
Yeah, the pool turnover rate is not where it needs to be to turn over that pool. The pool needs to be turned over every 6 hours. Currently, we're lucky if we're gonna get 18 hours out of it for health reasons. You're supposed to be able to run almost 1,000 gallons a minute into the pool to get it to turn over. That's a 350,000 gallon pool. You're supposed to be able to run 1,000 gallons a minute through there to get that turnover rate. And currently we are, according to the new flow meter that was just installed, currently we are at 350 gallons. The pool's gonna need to be replumbed to get it turned over.
Okay, so down the road, we
Down
need
the
to
road.
look at, okay? Council members, any questions with Councilman Marquez?
Good morning. I'm looking through this record of issues that we have here. When you were talking about the trim and the safety issues and the violations, is this just happened the last year, or is it just someone never identified it beforehand?
I can't speak to what happened before I got there.
Okay.
Councilman, I don't know that David or I can answer that question. Obviously, both of us are relative newcomers to the situation. The council was provided a fairly comprehensive report in January, February regarding issues that we found at the park, dealing with electrical and the pool situation. One of the first things, and I have operated swimming pool facilities for over 25 years. I've built 2 aquatic facilities, and the chlorine gas was right off the top of the list as far as the location of it. Because of the location on the south end of the pool, chlorine gas is heavier than air gas. Any leak or any situation in that case that would allow the release of the chlorine gas could have resulted in significant injuries and possibly even some deaths because of the use of the chlorine gas. It was and had been in effect. One of the things that observed early on was that rules from the state health department require that that particular operation has to be housed in a particular ventilated type house, and it was completely open air. All of the chemicals were stored out open. We're working on that, but to answer your question, that was the issue with the pool. But we found, as I said, we found a number of maintenance issues, the electrical. We had junction boxes that were easily accessible, breaker boxes that were easily accessible by kiddos, that if they had opened the box, they stuck their hand in and been electrocuted. We had wiring that was certainly did not meet the building code. In one instance, the Oakdale Park sign was illuminated utilizing a 75-foot long extension cord, and the connection of the, actually there were two cords, and they were joined by a normal plug, and the plug had been taped with electrical tape, and the extension cord was partially buried. That's not good maintenance under any circumstance, under any rule. There should have been conduit. There should have been the specific type of wire and material that specified in the building codes. And we have, again, we have attempted, and I think fairly successfully, replaced all of that and done maintenance on it. We've been to the council on more than one occasion asking for additional funds to provide for maintenance that needed to be done. So, and I believe you have a copy of the maintenance issues that were identified. We prepared a book that had pictures and a list of all of the areas that needed maintenance on them. And that's what David has been attempting to do. And as I said, we've on more than one occasion come to the council asking for either reallocation of funds or additional funds to complete the maintenance. So.
Okay, before we continue, and Councilman Moore does have a question, but we're also at this point crossing over from which is a natural to bleed one into the other, from the status of the equipment that is currently there or may need replacement into the maintenance arena. So unless you have a follow-up question to what was specifically asked, I would like to get to Councilman Moore, and then we can come back to you.
Yeah, but just to this chart, but I can ask it
Okay,
after.
Councilman Moore.
I had a question about, I know a concern of mine has always been the playground. I don't know if that's proper in this item.
In equipment, or
Playground
a few.
equipment. I
Yeah,
know we
playground
always end up
equipment,
robbing
yes.
that line item for something else. I would hope we can get that done this year.
What specifically are you
Playground
referring to?
equipment.
Oh, purchase playground equipment?
Correct.
Okay.
Either in the old location or the 5 acres.
Somewhere in the future.
I'd like to see that
Yeah.
done this year. We've been putting that off year after year after year, using that money for something else.
Okay. All right, Councilman Marquez, did you want me to come back to you then, or Councilwoman Ramsey?
Go ahead.
Just real quick on the diving board situation, I know when I was reading the Department of State Health Services Code, they actually had different lengths, widths, depths per diving board. Is there a chance we can get a shorter diving board to be placed there instead of the current one that had that length in there?
I think we were looking, Councilman, I think we were looking at the replacement of the same type and length, and there was a diving board that was purchased back last fall, and it was the same length as the existing diving board. One of the reasons, and we've kind of taken some chastisement regarding the removal of the diving board at the time we removed it was unsafe. The support mechanism was where it was welded. The welds were rusted and broken in places. All that would have had to happen is some fat guy like me jumping on the end of it, and it would have been off in the middle of the pool. So that was the basis for removal of that particular diving board. To answer your question, I think it may be possible, I don't remember the exact chart that was provided by the health department regarding the length of the diving board and the depth of the pool, but to continue with the same length of board, we don't have enough depth in the pool. I believe it's 13 feet 6 inches is what's required in the depth, and that diving board could not be accommodated with that depth.
And at this point, the pictures of the diving board stand are contained in your packet. Councilwoman Ramsey?
Yes, while we're on this particular issue, first of all, I want to commend you for all the things that you corrected, because some of this goes back to 2007, because I already had the 7, 9s, and 11s, so thank you for I know that's your forte, so thank you. I understand the whys that the diving board had to come down, and I don't have a problem with that. What I have a problem with is that the council had no input or notification prior to its removal. And we heard it through the streets from taxpayers, which I had no answers for because I wasn't aware. I feel that anytime there's a major change or removal of taxpayers' assets, the council should be made aware of it and have some input to it so that we can present a united front. And I think the main issues of what we're having now is lack of communication to the council, and this is one of them. Again, I'm not against removing the diving board. For the reasons there, it was just how it's handled. So, you know, if we're going to do anything else, I just appreciate for us to be notified in advance.
Councilman Jones? Oh,
Sure.
go ahead.
Done.
Councilman Jones?
On this particular form, do we have a schematic of Oakdale? That compares that, this is Oakdale, that's just a generic.
That came from the state.
So do we
That
have a
came out of the
schematic?
state regulation.
Do we have a drawing of Oakdale?
Of the pool?
Yeah.
I would have to find one.
I don't know that one exists specifically giving the depth and the dimensions of the pool.
That's what I'm looking for. All right, next question. The pool is pretty extensively remodeled, and I think we mentioned the point about the inflow into the pool. The diameters of the pipe were too small to handle that, and is overheating one of our units. That's what you're talking about replumbing. Is that correct?
Yeah. Currently, we're running 1.5-inch pipe.
Was that part of one of the older remodels?
That was part of the remodel, I'm assuming, when it was remodeled in 2011.
Is there any redress back to the contractor for not putting in the right size?
Probably not. Typically, those contracts are anywhere from 90 days to 1 year maintenance. Any workmanship or materials type thing. The actual plan and design, obviously we weren't here, so I have no ability to address why and I think we've talked about it before, but the pump that was being utilized to put water into the pool is a 6-inch pump. The exhaust piping on the pump was swedged down to 1.5 inches, which severely limited the amount of water coming into the pool. Also, it caused the pump to cavitate, and it became a maintenance item with the pump because of cavitation and the impeller wear. Found this out. We changed out the exhaust side of the pump from 1.5 inches to a 6-inch to accommodate that, but we still have the small exhaust coming out of the pool that would make that transfer sufficient to get it done. Otherwise, we just flood the pool.
All the exhaust from the pumps is already filtered water. I mean,
yes.
Filtered, chlorinated, treated.
One of the other issues that we found when we were doing some of that plumbing and replacing some of that piping for the exhaust side of the pump was that the mushroom children's play area, that particular, the water that was being utilized for that was what was being sucked out of the pool, and then it was being recycled right over to the mushroom without going through the filtration system. So we were taking essentially dirty water out of the pool and putting it right over with the top of the mushroom, where, a lot of kids play. We changed that particular pumping and design so that fresh water that's coming in goes to the mushroom, goes to the pool as required.
Water features and things like that.
Yes, sir.
So some of the issues that we're talking about with respect to the pool right now deal directly with the safety and welfare of our citizens and our users then?
That's correct.
Thank you. Councilwoman Ramsey, did you?
Yes, I did. I mean, I don't know how we can separate repairs and maintenance if it
Right.
can all lapse over, so, and I want our conversation between you and I know we're disrespecting you, but he's running the park, so, is it possible that for the new budget, that on the roof on the outdoor kitchen and the trusses that are rotted, that we combine both of those and do them at the same time? Instead, I see the $1,500 for just
Yeah, that's just
the roof, but if you're gonna do the roof, my feeling is gonna do the roof, can we just throw the trusses in, get another bid,
I would have
and
to get another
see
bid.
that? I mean, that I would like to see. For the audience, the ladies' restroom that you're speaking about is the one behind the stage, not the one that's used at the pool and the office area, is that
Yes, ma'am.
correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, that's for their clarification on that, so, the concrete pavilion, it said that 2016 budget item will not be completed, so is that where we were going to redo the concrete? We talked about at one time painting it and resurfacing, is that, I mean, I just,
That was a budget item before I
I
got
know.
here for last year. or for
and I
this
couldn't
current
find
year.
anything in my notes
I
where
don't
we
have,
specifically talked about that, so that's why I was just asking.
I don't know, I mean, that's why I included it.
No, I appreciate it.
And, like I said, it was part of the budget before I arrived.
I truly appreciate it. I know that probably one of our priorities, and I'm throwing out what your feeling is replacing the floors in the Toad and Lily, since those are our most, I won't say our most popular, but
They're
they
the
are
larger of the.
yeah, they're a large part of the revenue. Is that something that we're gonna have, that we can do in this year's budget, or are we gonna have to wait to the new fiscal year to try to do that?
I think we're gonna actually have to wait until fall.
I know we're gonna have to
It's-
wait, yeah,
It's a
because
fall
of this.
project, and I don't know that we can, move things around in the budget.
Do that.
The
I'm
budget
sorry, I
master's
didn't
sitting-
clarify myself.
The budget master's sitting to my right, so I don't.
Right.
I don't know.
Well, no, we can't disturb anything. When they're booked, we've dealt with that issue.
It is,
I just
they are
wondered if
repaired.
that, if we had to put things in a priority for, not the pool, taking everything out of the pool.
Those floors are repaired to a point, they're safe, they're operable. The wood underneath the tile is literally rotted through, and it's all gonna, and it's on the pier and beam portion of the, on the pier and beam foundation portion of those two cabins, that's gonna have to be repaired. If we get in there and it's too extensive, then we'll probably have to contract it out.
Okay.
I've got it on the books for, quote unquote, on the books for an in-house fault type repair. Don't know that, until we get it ripped up, exactly what we're looking at.
And a question regarding the flooding that took place at those cabins at the end towards Doug's house, that street. Was there flood damage done to those?
Not to my knowledge.
Okay, is there something
It
that we
came
need
within
to?
inches of getting into the door.
Right. Is that something, and I'm just asking about whether it's something we should put on a list to look at for future things, that there's any way that we can put berms in or lift it up to try to divert some of that?
I'm told part of that comes down, Jim Holder, in fact, has told me on a number of occasions that flooding is the direct result of College Street. And it comes off and it just pools right there in the corner, and it's really, it's got no place to go unless we put a drain there and tie into the city sewer on
I know-
McAllister.
Yeah, that may not be a part of Oakdale's budget, but it's something that to protect Oakdale that we might look at for the city.
Yes, Councilman, I think one of the issues that we're dealing with, in particular with Toad and Lily and the floor itself, is while the interior of the cabins did not flood, water got under that pier and beam portion, and there is no way to recover, to get that water out. And it just sit there, and over the last 2 years, the wood has deteriorated significantly, and that's the issue. But yeah, drainage along College Street would somewhat cure that. We have anytime it rains, we have a pool out there that gets pretty deep, and unfortunately draws mosquitoes and other things, so yeah, it's a problem.
Right, and I know that may be a city side, not Oakdale, but it affects Oakdale.
Yes.
So that, I'm just asking, how I am about, and I want the public to know these things. Some of them I've heard, but the public needs to hear that too.
And part of this process is to figure out, as Councilwoman Ramsey has brought up, what we can do more immediate, even though it may not be higher up on the priority list, as opposed to those things that are very, very costly on the priority list that we may have to look at phasing, or doing in phases. The pool deck is very high on the priority list, and your packets have pictures of the pool deck. But it's something that we may need to consider doing in phases. So we need to also, do some discussion about that because of the safety issues involved. Councilman Marquez, did you have your hand up?
For the pool deck, while we're on that, and has the process you've been here, I went by there the other day, and where the slide is, there's a grassy area that's just full of mud. Is the new pool deck going to accommodate for an extension? Because now that you have that pole right there for the handicap, when you input them now, how do the kids, I assume by just the tracks, that's where the kids go in and out so they can get into the pool. So if they track mud into the pool, then the turnover rate is, will the new deck or proposal of the deck include an extension so that there's an entrance?
I would assume so. I have to get a hold of the engineering firm. I've been given the name of the engineering firm to come look at it. I haven't contacted them as of yet.
And I think this is something else that we need to project, because that is going to be a budget cost, and some direction with respect to the go-ahead to engage an engineering firm. Councilwoman Ramsey?
Yes. Just to clarify for the audience, around the pool deck, and because it's considered a pool, we need a special engineering group that specifically for that. There's nothing wrong with the engineer group we have, but we need certified special engineer groups for the pool.
And, go ahead. Also, with respect to concerns in the community about the pool deck and its historical impact, we have photos that show that originally that pool deck in its original time was a flat surface concrete deck. So that is not going to be an issue. We do have with the concrete bricks or blocks and stuff, stone up there. There are some head bumping, tripping, serious hazards that we need to deal with. Councilwoman Ramsey?
In relationship to what your comment, is this something that needs to go before the preservation board to show that, so that, I guess we do prevention of we've got very few people here, but prevention, that the preservation board is alerted as to what we're doing with the pictures of what it was original?
Perhaps at the time that we get ready to do so, need to notify them that we have pictures that show that the flagstone deck is not part of the original construction and consequently should not be considered as a historical item.
Okay. I just want communication and education for our citizens and for us. And so by asking some of these questions, I hope I'm representing the people that elected me.
Yes, Councilman Moore.
This sheet, was this intended for park maintenance? And
Yes,
is this
yeah,
pri-
'cause it's a
And is this
open-
priorities, is it starting from top to bottom?
Yes, yes,
Yellow
sir,
is
it
the
is.
top priority,
Okay,
gray
I
is
just
the bottom.
wanted to clarify that, I wasn't sure.
And that's what I was
That's
commenting
my
about.
top priorities.
Okay.
Whatever council decides is.
Right. Well, I got a question on trees. I thought we trimmed the trees quite extensively the last few years. I mean, we got trees now that are trimmed up 10 foot up, there's just
Well-
little limbs at the top.
We've got trees that are running through power lines. We've got, during that lightning storm, big wind blow a month or so ago, I got called by the guys and said, hey, you need to come to the park. We've got tree limbs down. I didn't know at the time we didn't have tree limbs down, but they're bouncing on power lines and everything else. There's a bunch of trees out there that have got mistletoe and a bunch of trash in them. They're not supposed to be within 8 feet of a building, that sort of thing. So, and that's for the entire park. That estimate there is for the entire park, every tree in the park.
I just want to be careful that trees aren't butchered. I mean, some people know how to do a tree and some people don't.
And,
You can selectively trim limbs and preserve a tree.
and I think during that storm, didn't we have a limb come down across an RV?
Yes, we did. To further expound on that, the electricity in the park is actually provided by the TNMP. And the night in question, we had a power line that the limbs, the power line had been surrounded by the limbs of the tree, and we were afraid that the power line was going to come down on top of an RV the way it was situated. We looked at it and managed to trim out a couple of limbs immediately, and then went back afterwards and did some additional trimming, but we have to be obviously very careful with folks who are not trained in electrical operations, that we don't put somebody up in a bucket and get electrocuted. So we try to stay away from it as much as possible, but we do have additional issues, as David said, with power lines that are surrounded by the trees and by limbs that we need to trim out and perhaps even redirect the power lines themselves.
Any other council member questions, comments? Councilman Mitchell?
Just to get back to, getting back to the pool equipment, diving board in specific, we have a brand new diving board that we can't use. Can we sell that back to who we bought it from, or
I'm working on that now
recoup the money?
with the return material authorization.
And I'd like to continue to do some discovery. There's bound to be some way we can get a diving board of some type of profession that would meet requirements.
We may be able to go to a shorter diving board, or
Right.
just have a
Or diving platform, or
Yes.
whatever, they want to call it a different name or
Yeah,
whatever, but
obviously the height of it would
you have a
limit.
deep end on a pool, people have to dive. You know.
Sure.
I mean, there's gotta be some way we can do something, in my opinion.
Okay. Any other questions or comments from council members about the materials? With respect to past records, on maintenance issues at the park, also included in your packet were a pool inspection report and some done by the state, and some past insurance evaluations from TMLIRP that we found. So that kind of gives some supplemental information, which helped David in his research and his checking. Yes, Councilwoman Ramsey?
Yes, do we have, or where is the corrective action plan? Because I know from the State Department of State Health Services, they have to, they have 10 days or everything can be shut down. But I noticed that we don't have any kind of report or action, the corrective action plan. Are there any? We have the
inspection. report.
deficiency
Yes.
notices and so forth, but I didn't see anything about the plans where they used to make any correction of these. Now, obviously, there've been a lot that wasn't done because of all the letters or reports we have, but on the health, I'd like to see what the corrective action was that's taken.
Okay, I guess I would point back a little bit to the date that this particular report was filled out, was in 2012. I think we have ameliorated most of the items that were done. I don't know that a specific corrective action report has been generated or forwarded back to the state, but this report was dated in 2012. And
Well, and I realize that, but I know the health department dealing with businesses, and you have to submit some type of action plan, what you've done for them to come back and check it and say it's okay. So I realize that our files through the past years have not always been put together correctly, but I'd just like to see their plan. I mean, I know you've
I
gone through
haven't
stuff.
found anything as far as the cap is concerned.
Right.
Councilman Jones?
Does the Department of State Health Services have us on a anticipated re-inspection at all? Or have they stopped inspecting pools altogether, or they have been around in 4 years?
the health department is woefully understaffed. And if we get another inspection, you know, it may be within the next 6 months or next year. We don't know when that will be. DHS contracts with folks to do these kinds of inspections. This particular individual, I believe, has experienced some health problems over the last several years and is no longer working for DHS. So I have no idea who their inspector is, and we're pretty small potatoes on their radar screen, so they don't make an effort to get by here on with any regularity. We will, at some point, I'm sure, hear from them, but right now, I don't think so. I think most of these items have been addressed within the last 8 months, 6 months. The diving board being removed took care of the labeling, took care of several of the issues. There are still some things that need to be done around the pool that we are in the process of addressing.
Councilman Jones, you had your hand up a moment ago.
Was it?
Oh, okay, I was just. Any other questions or comments? And at this point, I think let's go ahead and recess for 15 minutes and come back before we go into the next section. Pardon?
Are we in B?
We're gonna be moving into, we kind of took A and B and they bled together. Okay, just by nature of it, so they kind of bled together. Did you have any other questions or before we recess?
If I may address one other issue concerning the inspection. Texas Municipal League, who is our insurance provider with liability, they periodically do come around. As a matter of fact, the inspector, Mike Shaw, lives here, and so he's painfully aware of everything that goes on, and he's not reluctant to tell us if we have an issue or a problem. Mike is not, well, let's see, I guess he was here in March. I think Mike was here in March or April, went through the park and made some observations for us, and we've been addressing those issues.
The email that was sent to David regarding the issues in May, dated in May, is that the result of when he was here in April?
Yes.
Is there a way I can get
Go ahead.
Is there any way I can get records of the 2009 and the last three reports that TMO has? I know we have some of it, but the actions that the city did. I mean,
Obviously, if we have those records that run the inspection in 2009 of what was done in regard to addressing those issues, certainly we will provide those to you. I don't know how much.
yes, I have that. That's policy. For also for the 2012, what actions like came out of this? If they had like a budget side or anything that the city says that, you know, they've addressed these in 2012?
Yeah,
I'm just saying, if you can, I'm not asking for it.
Yes, the 2012, Councilman, I don't have any idea whether there was any formal document that said these issues have been addressed. Chrissy would have to look through the.
I'll check.
Okay, that's all I asked. Yeah.
That's kind of along with the same question I was asking. I mean, you made it clear, thank you.
Yeah,
That's the kinds of things, to see if anything was done. I mean, if it was totally ignored, the past is the past, and Dave is doing a good job of handling that part, but it'd be nice just to see if they did.
There is a pool drawer in the vault, I think, but I don't know.
Okay, so we'll check further into to see if there's any follow-up documentation that was submitted by the city to these reports. Okay, Ms. Ryman, to the best of your knowledge, have you, I think you pretty well cleaned out the drawers of what you're aware of?
Got one left to go through yet.
Okay, so if you find something in that, please, so that we have a clearer picture of what was and was not done, so that we can move forward from that point. Yes, Councilman Marquez.
One more thing, in regards to the bathhouse, you're talking about the one that's in the plunge building, right?
No, sir, the bathroom that we're referring to is the bathroom that is related to the stage, connected to.
No, I mean the floor that's caving in and pulling the drain up.
Oh, yes, it's in the older bathhouse, yes, sir.
Okay, I didn't see it in here, but I know I went on Friday, yesterday, to look inside the bathhouse areas that's actually connected, that building is connected to the administration and everything. And the walls are corroded and deteriorating and are actually not connected down to the ground anymore.
Oh, you're talking about the pool?
Yes, the pool. So I didn't know if that was gonna be, I know it's not my high priority, but maybe a restructuring of that, maybe using, doing that, because I don't like seeing rust on the floor and stuff like that, so.
I believe there's a plan to redo those. Yes.
Anything else? All right, then at this point, I am gonna call a recess for 15 minutes. And then when we come back, we will be moving on to the next section, which is park policies. Everyone will be back at 10:25.
So that means that Sam probably has to run number.
Pardon?
Well, I'm gonna hang on to this and see if it's hot. Looks like,
And you should also
I
have
need
the
a
recycling
fan.
inspection that was done and the pool report. Will you not get a page?
Yeah, he has all that.
We already discussed all that. No worries.
I reconvene this special session of City Council of Glen Rose at 10:26. Okay, if there are no additional questions or comments from council with respect to equipment status or park maintenance, then we are going to now move on to the next item on the list, which deals with park policies. The reference for this is the park procedures and policy manual. that was put out, or that we received from the park. It is my understanding that this manual it's actually kind of a draft stage. The park, I believe, has been operating to some degree off of some of the rules and stuff, but it has not been finalized. Okay. That having been said, my observations from having dealt in past organizations and stuff with policy manuals versus procedures manuals, generally the two are two totally separate manuals. Procedures are generally, with very few exceptions, the internal how-tos that are basically a training book or a go-by book for the individuals who work in that area. The policies, on the other hand, are policies, in our particular case, that have been approved by the council, that are followed and used, and the council is aware of them, things such as setting fees, fee policies. The employee policies, the primary employee policies, are contained in the city's employee handbook. There may be some specific policies that would come into play with Oakdale Park, perhaps regarding lifeguards or something that the city may need to take a look at implementing. But other than that, my biggest observation is, and it is for me, it was very, very confusing to go through this and figure out which are customer rules as opposed to, or park rules as opposed to which are policies that apply to employees, etc. So, council?
Okay, I just want to show all of y'all my little tabs. I've read it detail. I agree with the mayor. It was very difficult to tell. There were personnel policies mixed in with the procedures. However, even though the city has a personnel policy, Oakdale is a business, and therefore our general personnel policy doesn't always apply to all the policies that need to be established at Oakdale. I feel like there needs to be a consistency of the employee policy that are through here, the use of cell phone, foul language, customer service, all of the policies that are kind of listed in there, like the work campers, and I have questions on that, but we can go through that later. But I think there needs to be a consistent personnel or employee policy that is in addition to the city's personnel policy. I know that at one time, I've talked with the city administrator last year in July, it wasn't in July of 2015, there was a long sheet, about 15 items, I believe, was told us, where the employees had to, it was presented to them, it was under the mayor's direction, and they had to sign these sheets, and we were unable to find any of these. But I think, yes.
What sheets are you talking about?
Okay, it was, okay, I cannot find the one that I had. It was something that the past park manager and Jim Holder got together, made a list of things like the cell phones, the foul language, the customer service. I mean, it was, I cannot tell you in detail what it said. I'm just telling you what I know. But I would like not just that sheet, or not just that particular sheet, but I would like to see a policy manual that applies to all. Lifeguards do have separate job descriptions of how they are, but there needs to be a dress code for all. There needs to be the cell phone and I know you didn't have anything to do with this, so please understand, I'm not. There needs to be a cell phone policy for all. I know that lifeguards are not allowed to use their cell phones. I witnessed the one taking the money, playing games, through the window. And that's not something that you're gonna see all the time, so I'm not being critical, but I don't think that employees should be playing games or, not this, on our computers or doing personal things. I think that needs to be in a policy, because it's not in here. So I'd like to see, if possible, the city administrator and yourself, and I know it's a task because of what I've done and tried to write out, take the different, where they put it under what the procedures are, there's something in there about policy. I'd like to see us take out and develop a separate policy. Because to go through this and try to bring it all out right now, as the mayor said, it's confusing. The other thing I'd like to see is make minor changes too, is a minor change that it's referred through here, the park supervisor. I think it needs to go to the correct title that you have or that Oakdale manager has for park manager. I'd like to see the organizational chart, remove personnel names and replace it with job titles. I'd like to see the concessionaire or concessions and the lifeguards put under the park manager as versus under the office manager. Because I think that you have a better, and this wasn't done by you.
No,
I
and
understand.
the lifeguards are operating under that now.
Right.
They're not operating under,
Right,
answer to the office manager.
Right, and these are just things that I'm basing on what exists or supposedly exists now. And I say supposedly because it hadn't been approved by the council. So those are some of the things that are in there. There's also some duplications, pages like late cancellations, pet fees, all the things that are, that they're already in one part, but then they're in another. I'd like to see all the fee schedules, and I know we'll talk about fees later, but I'd like to see the fees put all on a fee schedule, which, the charges for smoking in the cabin, dogs in cabins, late fee charges, trash charges. I think those need to be a part of the fee schedule as versus just in this book. And I do have a question on a duplication, and Mr. Hyman, you did circle these, so we have 2 cancellation policies listed in here, and I reread them. One says customers canceling a cabin or RV site must notify Oakdale Park in 2 weeks. Another one says customers who are canceling a cabin must notify Oakdale Park 48 hours, and then it goes into in advance in order to receive a full reimbursement of the deposit minus a $20 cancellation fee. So I think as a council, we need to decide if it's gonna be 2 weeks, 1 week, 48, and you marked them, so I appreciate that. I loved your little red marks.
I think those were city administrators' red marks, and we are operating under the 48 hours,
Okay.
not the 2 weeks.
So, these are just some of my overall concerns. I have, itty bitty ones that I just, as the mayor said, I'd like to see it broken out between personnel policy and procedures for the departments. And then we bring it back to council so that we understand what's happening out there. Because I think perception is 9/10 of the law. And if we don't know as a council what's supposed to be going on, our perception can be real negative. So, and I know your intentions are good, and we just need to get it organized.
Okay, Councilor I still have my eyebrows knitted about the list because I do not recall of a request
Well-
and I never received one.
Well,
That, I'm just saying,
well,
I'm
no,
just kind of
no,
as an
but-
aside, my
but it was
brows are
under,
going whack.
it was under your, let me say, you were mayor at the time it happened. I'm not,
Okay.
I'm not,
Okay.
okay.
'Cause
I
I-
said direction, but you were
Yeah.
the mayor. But when I was talking to our city administrator and I was talking to him about it, he hadn't seen one. I went to talk to Jim Holder and Jim Holder came back and explained to the city administrator what it was. But nobody's been able to find it. So, I mean, that's what I'm talking about, so that for your clarification.
Yeah, because I'm like,
The list or policy, whatever it was, we have not been able to determine, look through all the personnel files of all the individuals who were employed at the time last year. It does not exist in any of the personnel files. I have not found it in any of the records that were left in the city administrator's office. And so I don't know what the list is, and Jim remembers seeing it, but that's it.
Because he was with
Jim was over the
Oakdale
that
Park, and he was with the park director as it was presented to the employees. Now, Jim said he gave everything to David, and I'm not, please don't take it negative. It could be who knows what. But I'd just like to see us have a consistent employee policy for the business side of it.
and I think, thank you for bringing that forward, because I think one of the biggest takeaways from that is that we do need to ensure that we have some form of way to also document that all of the employees have in fact received copies and understand that they're responsible to read and follow. So that's kind of a big takeaway that is on a citywide scale as far as that, even with the regular standard employee handbook. So that is something we need to look at implementing.
And just another minor thing is, you know, I'm like you, we read these things and we catch contradictions and so forth.
Do I have another type of graphical error?
Pardon me?
Do I have another type of graphical error?
In this policy book, on the front page, when it talks about office thing, that first couple of lines, no employees are allowed in the, okay, that, but the next sentence says that, I've marked it, but, basically says that, oh, it's in this book. I'm going back and forth to the different books. Indulge me. That's the work campers. Oh, can I go ahead and ask a question about the work camper thing? Do they pay the regular monthly rate or okay, no discount, and they don't pay the like winter rate or summer rate, the monthly rates that are there? Okay, so they just pay
They pay their monthly rate.
monthly rate. Again, it just comes back to most of the things in that was changing the park manager as a result of park supervisor. Because a supervisor could be Waylon, Teresa, or, you know, because you do use the head lifeguard in there. Maybe it's maybe under the office. Anyway, if you read that first sentence under about no employee, Oakdale, here it is, office rules. Oakdale Park is a business and should be treated like a business. All employees are not allowed to enter the office area. And then the next sentence, the office area is only for office employees, do not hang out. I'd like to see that one sentence struck out when it's redone. I mean, it's like, and I know it's a minute thing, but it is a policy, and so
And we are referring to employees and employees.
It's under off, yeah.
We are,
Yeah.
you are employees and employees only
behind that door and behind that wall, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
But,
Oh,
because the employees or people who come in have to check, use the clock, and I know it's behind the thing. There was a policy, and I didn't see it in here, that no one was allowed in that back area, no children, no one else, other than the people that are intended there, unless you're asked to come back. I'd like to see that put in the
That was the reason for the
policy.
question.
Yes, yes, I'd like to see that put in. Now, I do have a question regarding the use. We've got the tables in there, okay? Are the lifeguards using that now as a place to come in and cool off as long as they sit at those tables?
Until such time as we get the other building with the commercial laundry taken care of, and then they will.
Use that?
They will use that in the future.
Right, because
That was the plan originally for this year, if we could have got this done before the pool opened.
Good, because they do need to come in and cool off. They do need to have a place to eat. And it is in the lifeguards policy and or somewhere that there's no laying on the floor, blah, blah, blah. And if employees' kids come in, they need to sit at the table too and not be wandering around. So, I'm trying to look at this as a business, not as what I personally may take. So, there's just a lot of little things. Now, if we decide not to do the diving board at some point, you know, maybe the flat, what you call it?
Platform.
A flat platform. Any of the policies in here that refer to the diving board, we may need to either delete or rewrite for specifying that, on that. And under rally rates, that whole thing needs to be redone. I have some issues with, you know, with that. I'd rather see like rally rates use a percentage of the fee and not a flat fee. If the RV spot's $35, then based on if they bring in 10 things, they get it for 20, you know, 10% off or something. I don't want to see it money, because then we're locking ourselves in. You know, I think we need to use percentages. And these are just my ideas, and there's a thing on there that says pay the original price. I'd like to see that changed to regular rate.
If I could, and some of this is going to come under fee schedule. Two things that I'd like to reiterate is that A, this document that we're referring to is one that Mr. Hyman had absolutely nothing to do with it coming. It was an inherited draft document that was being worked from, and I'm thinking basically what we need to do is extract what we can from this document that is usable and go back to the drawing board and start with a set structure for it.
And I thought I made that clear at the beginning.
I just wanted to reiterate that,
yes,
that same point.
And under office procedures, this is a question I would like addressed. I'm not wanting an answer. It's a question I'd like to address where it says office hours will vary depending on festival, blah, blah, blah. If you're scheduled to open the office or close the office, please arrive 30 minutes prior to opening and expect to stay 30 minutes over. And you wrote a question of overtime. Or whoever did the red. But let me finish and then go on. If the office doesn't open till 9 o'clock and the employees are expected to be there at 8, there's no reason for them to come in, say at 7:30 or 7:45. And yes, there are times when they have to stay over because they're in the middle of something and the time afterwards. But we need to decide on their hours. Are their hours going to be from, if you're going to do 30 minutes, and I'm just throwing out things, from 8:30 to 5:30 to cover those kind of things and not have overtime? And I'm not asking you to answer. I'm just.
If I could at this point, I get all of the issues that you've identified. I think you pointed out that I made
Yeah.
remarks by
Yeah,
a number
I
of
thought it was
those.
David, I was giving him credit, I apologize.
Not to take anything away from David, he's quite capable of doing this. He's been busy with the other maintenance issues.
Oh, yeah.
And he's out, and I will tell you that he is in the park working as much as, or more than what he's in the office. And so I recognize that this needed to be rewritten. And what I would give your comments, Councilman, I would request perhaps that the mayor appoint a couple of members of the council to work with David and I to rewrite this particular document. I mean, I don't disagree with anything that you brought up today. Virtually everything you said, we have identified at some point. Some of these items that we feel like are common sense issues that are in this policy, we don't think really are viable, and so consequently we have modified those. And again, as the mayor said, this, as far as I know, was never adopted by the council. It's been strictly an administrative procedure, and we would respectfully request a couple of members of the council work with David and I to rewrite this document.
Well, I'd like to be a part of that, and because that would eliminate a lot of this discussion now that we have with it. Because I have great respect for both of you, and I know that we just need that communication and education from one another. What I suggested is not necessarily what needs to be done. These are just...
And this would be in between the subdivision regulations and the master plan.
Now, let's do this first. We've never dealt, we keep putting the master plan off and the subdivision plan. Subdivision plan's been put off since I've been on council in 2011. So this concerns a venue, a historical park that affects our whole city, our whole state. And it's important that we all understand and put it together, so.
I think that it's probably an extremely good suggestion, recommendation. And at this point, Councilwoman Ramsey has said that she would be willing to serve on that committee to help put the base document to come before council forward. Any other members of council that would be willing to volunteer to serve with that group? Okay, Councilman Jones has also, so this is to establish, and this is going to deal with the policies that are organic to Oakdale Park. And in view of other things that are going on, the city administrator probably leave it to you to put a schedule together and move forward on that, and look for something, probably possible report after the end of the fiscal year, because we do have budget coming up. Is that realistic for you? Maybe the November council meeting?
Yeah, maybe
as a
November.
draft November
October,
council
November.
meeting? Okay. Because we do have budget coming up, so,
Yeah,
okay, Councilman Moore's been sitting there
Okay.
going like this,
All right, I'm
going like
sorry.
this, I'm sorry, one time when.
A safety item that I'm concerned with, I think we need to have a more defined alcohol policy. I don't know exactly, there's nothing in here that I know of. I know we say we've got a policy, and I know we passed one when I was mayor for venues, that you had to, council has to approve it, and then you have to have law enforcement there. I think, what I understand the policy is now they're supposed to keep it in their area, their RV area. But I have been out there and seen people walking around with alcohol, and that's a safety issue, and we want to keep it family friendly.
And Ms.
And I think when y'all are working on this,
Yes.
we need something more defined in writing.
And that would be, if you don't mind, Councilwoman Ramsey, because I know you have some other comments, but in order to get input.
Oh, yeah, I'm fine.
Now that we have we've established a committee to take care of that, I'd like to open it up to the other council members. Councilman Warren has put in something that now the ideas that they feel that they see would need to be in this type of a policy book. And Councilman Moore, his suggestion of a clearly defined alcohol policy and policy.
I know we have one for venues.
Yes.
Special venues, but
And
just
that
people
policy-
staying there.
And that
What
policy
is the
can
policy?
encompass both individuals and venues. They can be in one policy, but they have to be very clear as to what they're for. And venues is actually, the correct word is the events, as opposed to, because the whole park is a venue, but the events is what we're talking about. There were certain types of events that were given that latitude to have alcohol present in the venue areas. Councilman Mitchell?
Yes, I want to get back to something we mentioned earlier, hours of operation at the park. I'd like to see it open a lot later. I think you said 6 p.m. we close the pool.
6 o'clock we close the pool.
Why is that? I mean, a lot of people like to go swimming around. It gets cooler in the day. Elderly people especially, you know, like to go over and swim at 7. I don't see why we're not open until like 9 o'clock at night. Is there a reason for not?
Well, we have a lighting issue to be open later.
Lighting issue?
We have a lighting issue to be open later. As it gets darker, the lights have to come on. The lifeguards, if they're there, I've only got 10. Okay, if they're there, the ones that have been there have probably been there since 7:30, 8 o'clock. So we have an hour's issue to worry about with the lifeguards as well.
Perhaps some of them would like to come in at noon and work till.
I've only got 10. I've got 5 on one shift and 5 on another.
Okay, well.
That's all I've got.
Perhaps we need to get 15, you know.
Well, 16 would be optimal.
Okay.
But for now, I only have 10, so we can, that can be addressed, but right now I've only got 10.
And that's not a matter of, we have limited ourselves to 10 lifeguards. That's all that we had that applied that could pass the water safety test or did pass the lifeguard test. We simply only have 10 individuals that were interested in lifeguards.
And we started advertising for lifeguards in January.
And a lot of these kids, and based on previous experience, Mr. Mitchell, a lot of these kids are involved in school activities. Even after the fact of where we are in the summer, they have summer league baseball, they have other things that they have scheduled, and the serious reluctance to work past about 5 or 6 in the afternoon. And not to say that leaving it open later is not a good idea, it is, and certainly would have additional folks that would come in. That's just the facts of the thing, is the limitation on the number of lifeguards that we're able to attract and keep them occupied and keep them working so that they're not bored and burned out by the time that we get to the end of the season.
Councilman Jones?
I know this is, talking about the direction of Oakdale Park was part of this meeting also. And, with the years, I've been here 32 years, and the neatest part about Oakdale and getting started were the swim lessons, the water safety courses, the life saving. It was all designed to focus on the use of the pool as early as possible. Not hammering you on this over this year, but to restore that part where we're actually encouraging the swim lessons and encouraging water safety instructors and growing our lifeguard pool. That's one of the things I'd like to get back to also. That way you'll have more use. And I do just second Doug as far as wanting to stay open later. I think 8 o'clock at night would be very easy. And again, once you do that and you start seeing the traffic trail off, have the freedom to say shut down. We've got 5 people left in the pool. It's time to go ahead and close it down and have a little flexibility in that. The weather has a lot to do with it too. If it cools off, it shades up at 6 o'clock, it's going to get cold. People get out. Then you say we close the pool because of the weather. I understand that. That's step one.
Yeah, the only thing I would say is that there are some distinct logistical issues concerning, having sufficient people, maintaining control of the payroll for those individuals and keeping it under control. And the other is the individuals being able to have predictable hours. Some of the students, because we do try as much as possible to come from the local area, and a lot of those kids are counting on a certain number of hours. And if it goes into there's latitude, you're scheduled to stay here till 8, but we might close the pool at 6. We have to look at, is that going to discourage kids from applying to be, lifeguards at the pool? So there are a lot of elements that have to be weighed in this whole concept.
One of the things that brought about the earlier close time was the kids that I have this year as lifeguards, okay, were there last year. They watched the traffic flow from 6 o'clock to 7 o'clock, and it was 0, is what I was told by those kids, that there was nobody coming in after 5:30. And I said, okay, then let's just make it 6 o'clock, and it's been pretty true to form. About 4:30, everybody stops coming in, and that was one of the reasons for that decision.
And that's a valid point.
There was nobody coming in the pool, so.
I'm going to throw one more point. Golf courses like that too. I mean, you're going to employ people that work the golf course, but if the weather turns off, then you're going to find the parking lot's empty. And
Well, if they know the pool's closed at 6, well, they're not gonna come at 7.
Well,
If they know the pool's open till 9, well, perhaps they might come.
Councilman Marquez?
Is it a possibility to create a survey and post it online to ask for an extent of hours for at least one day a week, where we could do something like movies at the pool, where the grassy area, that'll bring in the local community, it'll increase revenue, and you don't have to stress the lifeguards for that day. Do you think that's something we could do?
Saturday night,
Yes.
Saturday night bands, things like that.
I as a parent of 2 kids, they do want to go to the pool. We are going to Big Rocks or other areas later at time, Wheeler Branch Park, because we're in Glen Rose. We have so many other places where we can actually go into the water, but we do know that it closes at 6, and we usually don't go because it's during that hottest times. But between 6 and 9, that's a good area. But if we included something like a movie or something like dusk or an event, then you could introduce that concept to the citizens. So I mean, budgetary wise, we'd have to look at the payroll and everything, see how much it would cost for overtime, how it's going to impact your operating procedures, and also with how, even if the concessions would be open now that it's contracted out, to see if the feasibility of him extending those hours too. So that would probably be in some type of package that you guys can receive. That'd be cool.
Along with what they're saying, if nothing else, I'd like to see it during the summer season be open Friday and Saturday night later. And even if it means we have to hire another lifeguard, because that's when the park's full. And so that's what I would lean closer to doing, is the Friday and Saturday nights. Because people are off and they work in the yard or whatever, and then they could go to the pool that night.
I agree.
Let me ask the folks who are suggesting, would a perhaps later opening on Friday and Saturday be a possible consideration in order to provide for those later nights?
What time do they start showing up in the mornings for the pool?
On Friday and Saturday, Friday and Saturday, they're pretty much there at
At
between
10.
no later than 10:15, 10:30.
Or the feasibility of perhaps closing earlier than 5 or 6 on the off days to kind of balance out that. Right? So it gets down to the logistics again, but yeah. Councilman Mitchell?
How many lifeguards do you have on duty at all times?
Got 3 on, we've usually got 3 on the stand. One
Three?
take- Three on the stand, 1 watching the kiddie pool.
And what is the rotation requirement on those?
10 minutes. They're 10-minute rotations per station.
And then they have to come off
They've
for a
got to
break.
come off for a break.
So that means you have 4 stations, and then you have to have 1 person to relieve so that you've got rotational break.
Right.
Okay. So it requires 5 per shift.
Is the person who's working at the desk, checking passes and collecting money, are they a lifeguard?
No.
No, they're just a seasonal employee, okay.
Just a cashier. Which freed up the lifeguards to, actually take.
Which I like better, I
which
just
to
wanted to.
take a break.
Yeah.
And it goes to, there's only 1 person taking money as opposed to 6. So if the drawer's messed up at the end of the day,
It's one.
I go to 1 person instead of 6.
I mean, I like that idea, I just wanted to clarify.
Other thoughts on longer hours at the pool? Okay, other thoughts about policy documents that need to be included in the Oakdale? So far we have alcohol, a defined policy on hours of operation. That kind of led us into exploring the open later at night. Councilwoman Ramsey has mentioned Councilman Jones.
At some point, I want to talk about work campers.
Okay, that, right now, we're,
Just
okay.
throw that out there.
Councilman Marquez?
This is the policy and procedures
Right,
book.
policies, right now we're focusing on policies because procedures are basically the how-to that the council doesn't need to, with very few exceptions, the council doesn't get, it's a training manual.
It's a question for Mr. Nolan. Is it normal to have a separate policy for employees of the park versus employees of the city, even though they're the same employees?
There may be some additional rules within the park with particular specific park policies for specific things like, as David said, rotation of lifeguards, where they do their downtime, whether or not they are allowed to have their cell phone on the stand. Those are specific to a swim pool park type issue. Most of the time, the individual personnel policies generally cover most of the same issues, but there are a few exceptions to it. So to answer your question, yes and no. I realize that's to answer your question specifically, but the personnel policies as a general rule cover most of the issues.
But one other possible policy that would differ from the standard between Oakdale and the standard is the vehicle use policy. The standard vehicle use policy for all city employees is that it is, you're a city employee only, and those are the only people who are authorized the vehicles. However, looking at Oakdale Park as a venue and considering keeping options open for our individuals who may need assistance in getting around the park when an event comes, the possibility that the council may want to consider would be allowing for use of a limited number of the golf carts for those event personnel only, which if that were to happen, if that were a decision that would be made, then there would need to be a separate policy specifying that usage for the Oakdale Park equipment only. So that would be another instance where there would be something that does not apply general, because it is an exception to the general one. Councilwoman Ramsey?
Yes, Mayor, I think I heard you, and correct me if I'm wrong, that the council should only be concerned with policies. I think I stated earlier, and I want to reiterate it, I'd like to see the procedures, so that if I drive through the park, and I have the procedures, that I'm able to correct my perception of what I'm seeing. So I think the council needs to be involved with the procedures. Yes, it's detailed stuff, but if we understand what's going on, we can head off a lot of observations. So this has procedures in it. I'd like for us to be able to pass or discuss the procedures when they're all put together and separated out from personnel policy.
Okay, and procedures that, from my perspective, are those that say, okay, if you're going to make a reservation, you go to the computer screen, you call up this, next step you call up that.
And this is in here.
etc. Some of those, yes, some of those are. But they're pretty step by step. They do not necessarily need council passage. Obviously, council has an open door to any policies and any procedures that are in place for any area of City Hall.
I would like for us to be given a copy of the final procedures.
Absolutely.
And then if we have any questions, we can put it on the agenda and question those procedures.
Absolutely, and there are some things that there are gonna be specific procedures, like the alcohol, for the alcohol policy for venues, okay? There is a specific procedure that involves that request coming before this council, okay? That is a policy, procedure that would be included in the policy as part and parcel of that policy. Anything else? Councilman Mitchell?
Okay.
You have to stick your hand up, please.
Okay, I had just a general concern, Oakdale Park, about the concession stands. Are we getting any positive feedback, or how's that working for us?
The contractor that's running the concession stand right now is absolutely loving it, and he keeps telling me that he wants to make it a long-term agreement. So hopefully, we can do that.
And general public customers seem satisfied with?
Everybody seems very satisfied. We did have, he did have one issue that he came to me about, and then I consequently took it to the city administrator. 3 or 4 concerts he'd been open for, he'd only averaged about, for a grand total of $74 in sales. And city administrator and I took it to the city administrator, and we talked about it, and we said, no, for $74, there's no reason for you to be open. You know, so that night, during concert weekend, he's not open any longer.
On large events, you know, Somervell, Bluegrass, et cetera, is that something that you can encourage him to be there at the snack bar?
I already have that commitment.
And I know that, you know, and I understand the concerts, but for our big venues that, you know, that are there. And I'd like to just give him and his son praises. They have the best customer service, and how they treat people and how they reach out to people. And I just, the Odoms, I have the highest regard for how they're running the business. So David, thank you for allowing them to be the concessionaire.
Any other policy procedure comments before we move on? Okay. Then, before we take a break, let's move to the fee schedule. This fee schedule that is in here is the current fee schedule that's being followed. And I'm going to let City Administrator Mr. Iman kind of discuss with you.
That's not me.
Kind of discuss with you before we open it up. some of the issues that they have found. Mr. Nolan?
Well, so the fee schedule per se has never been adopted by the city council. And while I don't think there have been any specific objections to the dollar value that is being charged, as strictly as more of a safeguard for staff and myself, we would like to have this fee schedule approved by the council so that somebody from the public comes in and says, well, I don't want to pay this is too much, we have no basis other than at some point someone established a dollar value for the various places in the park to be rented, leased, whatever, and we have no basis for it other than this particular document. So that would be my comment in regard to the fee schedule. If you think they're too high, please let us know. If you think they're too low, so that we can adjust the schedule and bring it back to you for formal approval.
Councilwoman Ramsey?
I'm sorry I'm hogging it, but I've got details. I'd like to see where it's on the fee schedule that we put the names of the cabins or so forth rather than how it's grouped. So that if someone's staying in this sheet, because on the one that was in the past.
That was just for your reference.
Right, but.
We've got those.
Right, yeah, is it gonna be more like the one, not this complicated, but.
It's on the back of the pamphlet that they pick up.
Yeah, but it's more like this and breaking it down. And, all of the cabins, were the same process we've had, except for the, number, not the family units, but the furnished one with the hot tub. It was $101.70 in the past. Are we raising it to $107.70? Are we raising it to that?
I have no idea. This is the fee schedule that's been charged since either one of us have been there.
Well, but this one that's in the book says that it is $101.70.
It could be my dyslexic brain.
Okay, well, I understand it. I just want, right. So we're gonna do it at 101. I'm just questioning, so I understand.
Yeah, nothing's changed on the fee schedule since I've been here.
Right. I have a question that I've never gotten answered since I've been on council. I do not understand what the gold, silver, and bronze RV sites are. I know that there were question marks in the book regard to those. Do we know what that is?
The gold ones are over on the east end of the park.
All right, I'm directional challenged.
Range in number from 69 to 104. The silver ones are range in number from number 1 to number 60, and they are on the west end of the park. And the bronze go from 19 to 68.
Thank you very much.
Are they the same price?
No.
No, they're different prices. But I just needed to understand.
Was the gold larger? Put the bigger rigs on the east side?
Yes, and they've got, and they're 50 amp, I believe.
Yeah.
They're 50
Right,
amp. size.
McAllister.
50 amp.
Where in bronze?
They're on the east side of the
On
park.
McAllister Park, McAllister Road.
And my other question with it is, I agree with whomever put it, that it should be 17 and younger, because 18 you become an adult on this schedule that we have. I don't know, this was a sheet that was in our packet.
That's the one that I printed up.
This was a sheet that was in our packet. You need?
No, I got it.
And so, I totally agree with that change. And I do believe that that's in yellow, it says CC fees are not being charged. What is credit card fees? Is that what that means?
Yes, and that's one of the things that we probably need to institute. It becomes, we are charged a fee every time we use a credit card or accept a credit card. The state law pertaining to utilities and other items that the city charges for, we are required to collect a credit card fee, which ranges from as little as 50 cents to as much as a couple of dollars, depending on the company that we have to utilize for the credit card convenience. And this is probably one of the areas that we need to institute at Oakdale, just to be able to, because it does, I mean, even though we have a price here, let's say of $79.10 on a daily rate for one of the cabins or cottages, when you deduct out that fee that if we're charged, then we're not collecting the full $79 for the cabins.
Oh, I agree. I just wanted to make sure that CC was credit cards and not convention. And I'd like to see, out of respect for our military, this is just me, that the military discount be 20% instead of 10%. I don't know if the council agrees with that, but I really think, and tell me what Passport American Son is, that they get 50%.
That's one of the RV groups, one of the RV, you know, it's kind of like big, Good Sam Club. They only get 50% Sunday through Thursday. The other is, if you look above that, Passport group gets 10% Friday. Okay, on Friday.
Because I didn't know the difference between the
So
two.
it's the same group, it's just different times during the week, there's a different discount.
Okay.
That was gonna be my same question, because I think your dyslexia kicked in and you abbreviated Thursday as THRU instead of, so it's, trying to guess on that one.
It's okay.
Right.
Councilor Moore?
I'd like to see some sort of small discount for local citizens who pay the taxes. To me, I mean, we're giving discounts to everybody else, we ought to be people who pay the taxes.
Is that folks strictly inside the city limits or
Inside
county
the
or?
city. At least inside the city. I would think.
They're the ones who are paying, it's a valid point. They're the ones who are paying the taxes out there anyway.
What percentage?
Now, my other question would
I'm not
be,
sure.
would that extend to family members from like out of town? Okay. What about, and I don't see employees listed on here, city employees. Some of those do not live inside the city. But the question becomes, you know, because I know that it's my understanding the park does give
Oh, that's what I
a
was gonna say.
discount, but it's not on this discount list. Okay.
Yeah, if we can include that, would.
Councilman Marquez?
This will be adopted by the city, but it hasn't not.
It has not yet been adopted at all.
Ever.
It's the one that was inherited, it's the one that they are going by, but it was never adopted by the city, and that's why these things need to be part of that. That's why this workshop was part of it.
To continue on recommendations while we're at it. I talked to a couple of RV guests that came from Arlington. You know, we have a lot of short term, you know, not when they do the Dulcimer or the Bluegrass, just when they do the off hours. It was on Thursday, and the hours of arriving are 12 and leaving at 11, and they were wondering why. They were told that they had to leave at 11 and that they couldn't extend or pay more for extended hours. Now I looked on the website, and it does say something on the website in reference to that, but when I looked at the fee schedule, I don't know where it says that. But they said they would pay $25 more to stay for 2 more hours. And I go, well, that puts you past 12. But is it a normal RV site where you come in at 12, or do you come in at 3, or you come in at 4, just like at a hotel?
It's been my experience, most of them are pretty much related to hotel, other hospitality type operations where check-in is 3, and check-out is noon.
Yes.
Particularly, and I think this policy is in place more particularly for the cabins and for the rental units that are hotel-like operations as opposed to the RVs, and it just bled over into the RV portion of it.
I would see, for me, it would be looking at, checking in at 3, and then if you come early, then if it's available, then yes, that's fine. But checking out at 12, and then if you do get an hour, maybe on this, maybe a $15 extra for that hour, because they, it's only 2 people, but it was 2 families, but both of them, they were right by that big pit, and they said they would pay that $15 extra just so they could leave at 1. So there's a possibility of an extra revenue. I think it's on the website,
Yeah.
but to adopt it would be.
And we just need to make sure to incorporate based on availability, because if they want to stay until 3 and somebody is coming into that site that day, that could create some issues if they arrive early.
Yeah,
Kind of.
for the hours, right now you have checking out at 11, checking in at 12. But usually, you would check out at 12 and you would have that turnover for everything, for cabins, even for RV spots where you'd have to clean it up or put some sand down or dig some areas or do maintenance around it, because they could have been there for a week and you need to get that grass grass cut, you got that 3-hour window. Right now, I think they have a 1-hour window.
Pretty close.
So,
I mean, if they're sitting up, if they're backed up, lined up, waiting to go in, they're waiting on somebody to vacate their spot.
yeah.
And it's, tons of juggling act.
Okay, I think Councilman Jones had his hand up earlier, and then,
Regarding credit card fees, you mentioned requirement by the state to charge a fee? Is that a
Yes.
requirement? Okay, next thing is on receipts. I expect at the swimming pool, we take mostly cash because that's just the nature of $3 and $5 purchases. At the RV side and the unit sides, are we taking mostly credit cards, some checks, mostly cash?
Flip a coin, it's.
I mean, at my business, I'm taking 70%.
Yeah, we take the majority of it's credit card, but we do have some checks and there's a lot of cash.
Let me restate that. We're required to charge a credit card fee?
Yes.
We must.
Or okay, all right,
We must charge a fee.
all right, not a problem.
Councilman.
Is that easy to calculate?
We get charged a fee, the city gets charged a fee, so we must cover that fee by charging the fee.
My requirement, was it a requirement that we collect an additional fee on top of the rental to cover the credit card? And if we're taking most of our receipts and credit card payment, then just raise our rate and not worry about trying to tack
You
on
have
an
to
extra.
either do that or calculate a discount.
How do you calculate the 2% additional fee or 3% additional fee?
You would include it in your, the way we do it with utilities is there's a formula that you put into place with the utility bill. You tell the customer there's a 3% fee, which we passed in the ordinance a few months ago. There's a 3% fee in addition to your bill. And that's calculated at the time they pay.
Is Oakdale County able to do that?
Yeah, we can set that up.
We can set it up, it's not there now.
But we can't do that until it's approved.
It has to be approved for this.
It has to be approved.
Councilman Marquez.
I noticed the prices for, it's just, is there a reason why it's $24.30 and not just $125? Is it because of taxes or?
No idea.
The standard rate and recent discount? I mean, I know it seems small, but for some reason, $27.30, $237.30. Since we're working on it.
Did we finish your recommendation on the check-in and check-out? Because you said 3
check in at 3 and check out at 12. Did we finish that?
So
It's just a
far as,
recommendation.
yeah.
I would like to see something like
I
that.
have a comment there regarding that. In the policy book, in one place, it says check in at 3. Now, it's talking about the cabins.
Correct.
So are we going to have, to go with your recommendation, are we going to have different check-in times for RV spots as cabins? I mean, that's
Well-
my question.
Right now, are there different check-in times for RV spots and cabins?
The book says so.
Yeah, and to unify them so that they're the check-in and check-out. The biggest thing is that when you have big RVs and trucks trying to check out at 11 and they want to stay a little bit longer so they can get that perfect picture or to look around, you have to have that split between someone coming in and coming out. If you allow them to come in an hour, but there's somebody waiting for an RV spot to come in at 12, it becomes a hassle. Same thing with, the hotel, and, if anybody's been in a hotel or at any spot during 12 o'clock, 1 o'clock, there's nobody in that hotel, and you have tons of, cleaning people, crews to come in, and we need that gap so that they can do that. Their turnover rate is so close, so to unify it, then you'll have that 3-hour, 4-hour gap where most of the park is empty, except for, of course, citizens within Glen Rose and the pool, so that they can do that maintenance cost.
Quick comments on that. Could you allow them to have free
Councilman,
parking?
could you hang on for just a second? I just want to get I just noticed city secretary's trying to catch up on and grasp that whole thought.
So uniform between the cabins and the RV spaces with the option to stay later if they pay a fee.
Yes.
Okay, got it.
Okay. And that, of course, is all contingent on whether or not that
It's already
site's going to be available for a later. Councilman Jones?
We're presuming these people are actually going to be leaving the park, so to pack up their camper is one thing. Do they have free parking over at the 5 acres?
Yeah, absolutely.
So they could actually depart their site, free it open for the next person in there and still park their camper on
I mean,
site.
they're gonna be there for a limited amount of time, it's not like they're gonna be there overnight, so.
Councilman Moore?
Our 10th, he's not on this, let's see, 10th fees.
Come to think of it, I didn't, you're right, I didn't see
That's on my little sheet.
10 fees.
They're currently 20.
Is that,
20.
is it,
$20 per camp.
is dry camp on there?
Y'all raised the 10 fees?
Not to my knowledge.
They've always been 20.
Is there also an increase in 10 fee based upon number of people or size?
Yeah, there's an extra person charge.
Okay, so that all needs to be rolled into, and City Secretary just mentioned dry camping.
What is dry camp?
That's where you don't have any hookups, you're doing it self-contained.
Oh,
Does that mean on the 10 acres?
On the 5 acres, that would
I
usually
think
be
the
on
5
the 5
acres
acres.
should be 15, just because they don't have the utility. Pardon me?
That's what we've been charging.
Oh, okay, what I saw was 20 for all, but I'd like to see us put in there a little difference in that.
It's 20 unless they use our dump, it's 15 unless they use our dump facility.
Okay,
If they use the dump facility, then it's 20.
okay. Could we put that on there?
there's a dump fee.
The dump fee.
There is a separate dump fee.
Right, and just to reiterate again, we ought to have on the fee schedule the monthly rates, which are mixed in with a bunch of stuff. I think it's winter 400, summer 500. I think these all need to be on the cancellation fee, which I talked about. We've already just talked about tents, the cabin violation fees. I'd like to see all of that on a fee. Because if I were working at Oakdale, I'd want to be able to go to this and say, okay, this is what it is. And I think the violation fees, they said range from $50 to $200 in there, but there's no real explanation of what determines that 50 to 200, so.
And are there also weekly fees at the park?
Not to my knowledge.
So if you're gonna stay there for 7 days, you're paying the daily rate for all of those 7 days? Okay. Because I had heard at one time that they were seen somewhere at one
Yeah,
time that
there
there
is.
was a weekly a weekly rate in addition to, there was a daily, a weekly, and a monthly rate. Am I, Councilwoman
Right,
Ramsey,
yes,
do
I
you
have-
have one?
I have one that came out of the policy book, and it breaks it down to daily,
That's what I
weekly,
thought,
and
yeah.
monthly on the rates. And so that was one of my questions on here.
Yeah, it's in this district policy book, thank you. But I lost my mind.
No, because I went over and checked the different prices and.
Yeah, and there's, yeah.
See it?
Who's got it? Okay.
Because we've been charging daily rate, that's what we've been charging since I've been in.
So we need to make that,
Unless they were gonna be extended, a month.
and if I could beg the council's pardon for just a moment, I want to jump back to something before we forget because it was in the policy thing. The map with respect, when we get to talk about what gives out to the customers, the map with respect to emergency shelter, I stood on my head and still could not understand where I was supposed to go if I was in a particular space. We really do need something that is clear. This, I'm sorry, I would have been absolutely confused if I had severe weather and I needed to go to a shelter area, I would not have been able to follow it from this map. So it may just be a matter of taking the color out and being more specific on the numbers. But I do think that is an important safety thing that we need to get corrected in that, and I just didn't want to lose that in my mind.
May I
Yes,
tag
ma'am.
on to that?
Yes, ma'am.
This book refers into here that apparently the employees get an emergency plan,
Evacuation.
and the plan was not in there, but the map was in there regarding, and I'm like you. So I think that they, as a part of their packet or whatever they get, the customer needs the emergency plan so they can understand the map. So, I'm
And-
giving you a lot, and I'm sorry, but it makes clarification so much easier.
And to that, City Administrator knows this, if we have severe weather that looks like it's looming on the horizon, everybody in the park gets a phone call and told where to go in case.
Okay. That's something, that's something good to put, so that we, that we know, so that we can do that. And I like that you changed inclement weather to severe weather. Thank you.
And
Since I know that it's you in red.
dovetailing Councilwoman Ramsey's response about the emergency plan, City Administrator, I think if you check with our emergency manager, he may already have that. We just may need to simplify the verbiage. I don't know how intense it is. Because that would dovetail in with the emergency evacuation also. Councilman Marquez, you had your hand up?
I noticed that the Bluegrass Association receives 20%. I haven't been on the council that long, but is there a reason they receive 20%? And is there a possibility to change that to reflect other organizations too? So we have a standard adult somewhere, like we said, possibility other venues when we get into it. So we don't have to say, here you go, it's already standard policy, so.
I totally agree, because I think if you're gonna extend 20% to bluegrass, it needs to be to the dulcimers. I think it needs to be to the big rallies that
But
come
we
in.
need
And we need, that part to me needs to be worked on.
I think within that, when we create this fee schedule, and like you're saying, including a 3%, if you decide to pay by credit card, you have to have a policy saying that we will charge you 3% if you're using a credit card. At the same time, if you are bringing in 20 or 30, we need to have a standard table that says this is what you're going to receive, instead of through others.
And in addition to that, and keeping it applicable, one of the things I think the council needs to talk about is, okay, we have some large wedding reception a large family reunion that are going to be using those venues for their event. Okay, that's getting kind of into the next section, which is going to Oakdale Park as a venue for events in the future. But definitely would have to be reflected in the fee schedule also. Yes, sir.
Also, when you say these, when you hire, and this is in addition to the venue situation, when you hire a lifeguard, they just sign a contract, they do the items and they do their tests. Are there other possibilities of pulling in lifeguards from other cities if they have the same requirements and saying, hey, contract or whatever for special events, like the pool of Granbury, if we can bring those lifeguards, because they close too at 7.
That's good.
They do close at 7 also, but if we have that same restriction or same, guidance or acceptance and qualifications, that's standard, then we could say, hey, we have a special event, contract over for this night event or something like that. So we have that pool, because we are contractors. But on that's what I was saying, because when we bring more than people, big venues, we're gonna need more people. And that's gotta be part of that fee schedule, so.
Yeah, that's a great idea.
Councilman, we can do that, and what I would respond to that is that all the other swimming pools are facing the same issues that we do. Probably 50% of the lifeguards that work in various pools are college students, and they bail out mid-August. Most of the pools struggle to stay open Labor Day, simply because we don't have enough staff to man the pool. I know when I was in Cleveland, it took 17 lifeguards on duty to cover the pool. A lot of times on Labor Day, we didn't have enough people, and we had to cannibalize some of the other staff members to cover the bases. There are 2 lifeguard certifying organizations, Water Safety International and Red Cross. Which one are we using? Red Cross. We're using the Red Cross, and we had to send our folks from here to Cleveland to get them certified in the courses. Obviously, you have to have a certified instructor to provide the certification to the individual lifeguards, but everybody faces that as far as end of summer, start of school, everybody bails, and it's a struggle to keep it open.
It was the same way in Brady and Mason. I mean, that's a smaller area, more rural, but yeah.
And I'm fixing to have that problem starting about the 15th of next month.
We had to utilize teachers and principals, the assistant principal, and for our
Schools. We'll do our very
lifeguards
best to
and
keep it open and
pool managers.
to do what you suggested as far as we would accept. If we've got a big event happening and we need additional lifeguards, obviously we would accept. As long as they have that certification card that says Water Safety International or Red Cross, and they're, can see lightning and hear thunder, we pretty much take them.
Okay.
And starting the 22nd of August, all my kids go back to school. College kids and high school kids.
Are you certified to be a lifeguard?
Nobody wants to see this in a pair of shorts.
You don't know that.
Nobody wants to see this in a pair of shorts.
We want to see your legs.
We offered to buy him a Speedo and he declined.
Again,
Chester made that.
we're always focusing on, the possibility of creating more lifeguards, but if we create a program here, maybe parents, school teachers, maybe a day where we can certify people, and we create a bank where we can call and say, hey, there's a problem. We bring this out to the citizens now saying, hey, August 22nd is when school starts. Do we have any at-home moms or parents or, or just people coming over that are here to get certified? Maybe we can produce a class. Does our pool meet the requirements for certification though?
To my knowledge, it's got the deep end and.
Okay.
Yeah, so to my knowledge, it does.
So, and those are things that absolutely, we need to open up our options and look forward to and explore in the future. It may not happen by the end of this summer.
If it's okay by the council, I'd like to take that action, to look into that, to create something by, at least something that I can bring to the council and the city administrator and the park manager. Just a possibility, create a project to see if there's something out there where citizens would get certified. He would have a bank and he could call anybody saying, hey, we need someone to suit up, and we'll contract that out. So I'll take that action just to look into it, and then.
Okay, if you could, and then, again, keeping in mind that we're coming up on budget now, but perhaps after the first of the, or after, once we get the budget done and approved, which would be after the fiscal year, absolutely, whatever you can find out, would be great.
Is there an age requirement for lifeguards?
16.
16.
Because if we could have a pool ready for next summer, I know that it would take a great deal of stress off of the park manager.
Is there a limit of how old you can be to be a lifeguard?
As long as you can pass the, I'm assuming as long as you can pass the test, you're good.
You have to see lightning and
Hear thunder.
I'm short on the hearing.
Yeah, I know we kind of went into the lifeguard situation, but just to make sure that the Bluegrass Association, that 20%, I'd like to see something in the future that'll apply to it. I just want to make sure
Right.
it was covered.
I got that
Okay.
down as a note.
So basically,
And, okay, so at this point in time, we have one more topic to discuss that I know is gonna get very in-depth, which means that we probably are not gonna be out of here by 12 o'clock. So I'm gonna take a break, and when we come back, the focus is gonna be totally on the last item, which is designed to be event focused and future plans. So, we're gonna recess for 15 minutes, back in at 12 o'clock. It's 11:44, I call the meeting to recess.
I'm the one's gonna vote the president.
I reconvene this special session of the Glen Rose City Council at 12:03. Okay. Before we move to the next section, one very quick opportunity, Councilman Marquez has an idea with respect to, that directly ties to fees and the pool that he wanted to put out for consideration. Councilman Marquez?
so adding on to Councilman Moore's question about providing a discount for city residents, just like we look at Wheeler Branch. Wheeler Branch is a water district, and they have a fee schedule of $8 for non-residents, and then $4 for residents to swim at. I feel that the city should provide a discount for city residents. I would say a reasonable fee that is lower than what the current is, which right now for adults would be $5, and I would say something like $3 for residents. Again, those are recommendations, and you'd have to look at how much would it bring in, and to do that, you would add maybe a special event to introduce that new fee schedule, something that's discounted for that city, for the city pool. Also, it brings to mind that you also have outside residents that just come for the pool, and right now this schedule right here, this price is for people that are RVing also, correct?
There is a discount for RVs,
And
if they're staying in the park, yes.
and that's not in here, is it?
Correct. You're all right. You're all right.
So if that is possible, that it needs to be adopted by city council, it needs to be included here. I would say that normal, outside, and RV should be the same. Whatever we decide to give that park resident, but if it's the city, it should be lower. Because, I mean, you're gonna have 3 different fee schedules for each resident, non-resident, and everything. It can become complicated or of why. But again, I wanna make sure that we address that for a recommendation for city residents at a lower. And of course, and I would actually include city employees too, because they work for the city.
It's your recommendation, go for it.
Is that possible? I would recommend that also. Of course, that'll come up to a future city council meeting. We'll have to approve that schedule, but I'd like to see something like that.
And as when you and I were talking, as you explained to me, that doesn't necessarily mean that we do the city residents at a lower rate. It may entail the people that it does not apply to paying a higher rate than these fees. Okay, and increasing their rate and keeping, or some kind of compromise in between. But our taxpayers who are already paying for this facility, very good point from Councilman Marquez, and thank you for coming forward with it. Ricky.
One other thing, Mayor, like Councilman Marquez said earlier, I'd like to clean up these fees, this 107.20, 107.70, 105.09, 124.30. Can we round those off to like 125 or 106, or, instead of, this is kind of silly, I think.
I actually think that after looking at all those, I actually think what has happened is there was a fee several years ago, maybe longer,
Yeah.
but the council approved a percentage increase. And when you do the percentage increase, then you come out with the odd numbers on there, and that's how they got there with that.
But I'd kind of like to see that done away with.
I agree with you. A rounded number would be much better.
Right.
It's easier.
The other possibility is I take a quick look at these odd amounts on the end. How much of that is based on hot tax? Could that be the inclusion of the hot tax in there? No?
No.
Okay. Okay. Because the cabins are hot tax.
One more recommendation, just before we're on there on the fee schedule, is that there are times when we do have family reunions, and there needs to be a itemized deduction if we're providing, when an organization comes, let's say the Bluegrass Association comes and uses that 20% for those monthly meetings or something, and they provide those numbers of RV spots in regards to standardizing the different prices. I would say a possibility of, if your cabin rentals, if you have a family of 50 that's renting 10 cabins, there needs to be a standard saying that, hey, we provide you a 10% discount, so we can clear that board, or an extra more. I haven't looked down into the occupancy level or percentage on a daily basis, but that would be something to look into, to see, because given an example earlier, I was talking to a citizen saying, your occupancy level bases on how well you would be doing. If a cabin is only rented 20% of the time during the week, if it's grouped in with another one, it could probably increase how long that's been rented. Because a lot of people will give a max requirement of how many people can stay in a building, but if you jump from 4 to 5 and you get a 10% discount, then they might grab that one just for $30 more.
So you're talking about the number of for example, a reunion group, the number of cabins that they actually rent. If they exceed a certain amount, then the incentive to, have the potential for a discount.
Yeah, it's not like something renting 2 cabins, you get a discount. It'd probably be 5 cabins, and you would get that 20%. Basically, you have that one lone cabin that's not being rented while everyone's pushing in there, but if you say, hey, if you did this and you purchased this one, and ease up on your space, personnel, you would actually get $30 or $50 for that instead of it just being empty.
Wait, yeah, okay. All right.
That's a possibility, but I mean, we'll hash that out more.
Okay,
That's it.
let's move on then to the last item on the agenda. And that is discussion on the future direction of Oakdale Park as a venue for events. City Administrator?
Well, obviously, there has been a practice in prior years to provide a significant amount of staff involvement with the events that go on at Oakdale Park. One of the things that, just an observation, is that in prior years, and we discussed this, I think, first or second thing this morning, is the maintenance of the park was being neglected and the events were being focused on. There were a lot of events that were happening, they were very successful, but it included a lot of staff time that we have taken I won't say necessarily a position, but our time has been allocated to doing the maintenance and not so much on the events. And the company or the groups that are having events at the park, relying on them to do the legwork, to do the advertising, to do the things that normally has been being done by city staffers. Obviously, that's not a very popular thing with some of the groups. I know that the Wood Carvers group recently presented David and I with a checklist of things that needed to happen for a fall Wood Carvers meeting. Between David and I, we simply don't have the staff or the time for either one of us to develop the brochures, to develop the advertising, to produce all of the things that the folks who are running these events would like for us to do. You know, and I'm just very blatant about it. If the council wants us to be involved with the events, with doing the advertising, with doing the hiring of the bands, we had booked the summer music groups. I think Kelly had developed that back last fall and established the dates for the summer music concert series. And so that's done, and we've been able to move through that. We've had a couple of cancellations just because band was double booked or something of that nature. But if in fact the council wants us to proceed with the city's involvement with the events, we're going to need some additional people out there to take care of that, or we're going to have to move the C&BB portion of the city operation, at least a significant portion of that, back into those events. Because we do collect a hotel motel tax on the cabins, we can't expend hotel motel funds in the park, even though the predominant amount of the park does not qualify under the Hotel Motel Act. We do have those cabins that do, and we do charge a tax on those events or on those cabins. So, and with that, we're open to suggestion. It's simply one of those things we elected to do the maintenance rather than to get heavily involved in the particular events. I know absolutely nothing about bluegrass music. I can recognize it 2 out of 3 times. This is the first time I'd ever heard of the Dulcimer Festival. Wood Carvers Group, I have seen that in other places, but it primarily was related to a specific event that was handled by a group. So with that, I'll be quiet.
The only thing that I'd like to add on to that is in your packets, there is the local government code. paragraph that includes the definition of a venue, which Oakdale Park and some of the public portions of Oakdale Park are definitely fall within the categorization of a venue. A venue is a place for events to occur, but events are generally planned, organized, etc. by a group, and then it is the group head who goes to the venue and says, we think we'd like to come and play in your playground. This is what we need. Can you support that? What would be the associated costs? What kind of discounts, etc.? Can we get what do you need in return? So this is where we, kind of, I like to make sure that we keep this difference between a venue and an event. The park is absolutely a venue, but what they're being asked to do is to plan and put together some of these events, and as Mr. Nolan has just said, it does put a strain on the staff. Okay, with that having been said, council? Councilman Ramsey?
Well, I mentioned this to Mr. Nolan in discussing about events that for whatever reasons the CVB and the park haven't been able to work together to, it was set up that the CVB would take over to the event and help with that. Saying that, there needed to be accountability on both parts. I think if that had been done, it would have been not as challenging it is now. Because they do have the money to do the promotions, to publicize it, to make the flyers, to make the brochures, and so forth. Since that avenue hasn't worked, I feel very strongly that we either need to hire a part-time person or a full-time person, that all they do is deal with coordinating events. The the Bluegrass Festival started out many, many years ago when the park took over city took over the park, that the park sponsored the Bluegrass Festival. Now, we need to decide if they're gonna do it or the city's gonna do it. But I feel strongly, very strongly, that we need to have events. Are we gonna have Boo in the Park? You can't do that because of what you're doing. But a coordinator or an event planner or whatever you wanna call it, because there is the budget line item in Oakdale Park to do these kind of things. The Christmas lights, driving through. That's been one of the biggest things for citizens to do. Boo in the Park the first year was not as big as we wanted it to be, but the second year we were overflowing. We've had ice cream contests out there where people bring ice cream and do these kind of things. Councilman Marquez talked about movies at the pool area or surround that. But Oakdale Park is not just an RV park. It is a historic destination. And the park is ideal for family reunions, RV rallies, Christian motorcycle rallies. I'm just throwing any large group things. And if there is a group, like the Dulcimer Festival or motorcycle rallies or RV rallies, this coordinator could work with them. And they would be under the park manager's supervision. There'd have to be forms and accountability. But I think we're doing a tremendous detriment to the park, for our citizens, for visitors, for exposure of this national historic thing by doing away with events. Now, I understand where y'all are, but I will fully support hiring a person to do that.
Councilman Marquez?
I know things are going to be the same. In 2010, when the city took over the park, A lot of things wanted to be the same. I wasn't here back then. All I can see is historical records. I'm looking at prints. But I will add to Councilwoman Ramsey's recommendation, and I would like to see a advisory committee, a Parks and Rec advisory committee. Cities this size, growing. I mean, this city is growing. If you look at the 2015 estimated census, you are still growing at a 3.5% rate. By the time you get to 2020, you already have the Chisholm available. You're already going to have the Cleburne. We are going to expand past, I would say, about 4,000, maybe 5. Creating a Parks and Recs department. It's always been something that I've always asked to look at. But the first thing we can do is create a Parks and Recreation Advisory Committee, or someone that can actually start spearheading events. We do have staple festivals here, and the Bluegrass has been that staple ever since 1972. Thinking historical, one of the founding members of the Bluegrass Association, or Paluxy River Bluegrass Association, was one of the owners. When they transferred over to the city, yes, some things will change, and it takes both the city and the associations that represent it. You have to have that liaison between the two. Mr. David here, he can't be that liaison right now because there's so much maintenance that needs to go down. And in the future, that might not be our only park. In the future, we already have another park right now. We have Big Rocks Park, right? We have the Riverwalk.
We have 2 small parks.
We have the Riverwalk, we have Big Rocks Park, and when, on the weekends, when those things are packed, who's responsible for taking out that trash or making sure that's available? What's the possibility of, I mean, that is literally becoming that destination. My big thing is I go to Wheeler Branch, and I swim over there. But it was surprising that on July 3rd, that place was not packed, because everyone was at Big Rocks, because the water was up, and you look down it, and you just want to. I mean, there's no netting in the canal. There's no netting. Ordinance says there's no netting, but there was someone netting, and I actually got out of my vehicle. I parked, legally parked. Legally parked, and I went onto the weir, and I asked that gentleman, and he was from Granbury, and he had never heard that there was no netting there, because the rules are not established. They're not on there. They're not posted. And if there was, then it washed away. Then it was. So.
Are you talking about, when you say netting, are you talking about fishing?
Fishing, yes.
Okay.
Fishing and netting.
That is an issue that needs to come back before the council. Our ordinance is absolutely, that portion of our ordinance that dictates the fishing in the river is totally out of our jurisdiction. That needs to be deleted. That is a whole other issue. That is the jurisdiction of Parks and Wildlife completely. We cannot, so that portion of the ordinance.
But currently
just
right
so
now,
you know.
But currently right now, in the ordinance, that you have to enforce the ordinance that occurred until you change out the ordinance.
We can't even enforce it. No, I'm just saying we can't. They won't let us park them.
Well, I still went up there and I told them. So,
yeah.
Until today, that's what I was doing. And he was more than welcome to do it. But what I want to bring home is there needs to be more community involvement in the future of Oakdale Park. Right now, it was not bought as a park. It was just said it was Oakdale Park. And historical says that at one time the city did own it, then was given to someone for a purchase price, and then they had it for a while, and then we purchased it back. That's the reason why you bought the 5 acres, were to expand that. And you did have 3 phases back in the days, and it never got completed. But to do that, you should have an advisory committee that's made up of all types within the city that understands the future venues. 4th of July parade, 95.3.
KOME, Laredo.
Yes, KOME. One of the announcers, Drew Meyer, he was kind of distraught that that they didn't have the police vehicles in place, and that someone needs to spearhead it. These events in the city need to have that representation, and it can't be someone within the department. It has to be somebody within the recreation community. Boo in the Park, Easter festivals. They have professions for that in the city, and if we want to be reactive, we can, but if we want to be proactive, we can establish that department. Already within the ordinance, the city manager can already approve a park department, Parks and Recs department within the ordinance. I don't think it's you, because you're a special entity, you have your own line number, but that should be a recommendation, and I firmly support Sandra Ramsey's, Councilwoman Ramsey's recommendation also.
We have one police vehicle, or one police officer.
And that's...
I've got some other information, see me afterwards, yes, Councilman Moore. Councilman Moore.
I'm sorry, I wasn't listening, I was concentrating.
Been around here a
Excuse
long
me.
time, and I wasn't on council when all this happened, but I think Mr. Strickland said it very well in comments later, what our goals and were for Oakdale at the time, to be a venue for locals, with the swimming pool, the playground, and for the tourists, and all these events. And when Jared Frills was here, he had a work camper that was here a short time, did the events for him. And then I would wholeheartedly agree with Councilman Ramsey, have a part-time or full-time person to do PR, to handle these things. I'd be for that.
Well, this would be beyond doing just the PR. I mean, we're talking
Right.
about
I'm just bringing it
actually-
up, though, that he had help at that time.
But
I
then again,
understand
it
that.
brings me to another issue, and that is a taxpayer money issue with respect to taxpayers' funds being used to pay for bands, etc., to perform. What is the legal mechanism? Because to the best of my knowledge, they can't be expended in that fashion. Unless someone else has information, it's not just that's where the organization being charged for the facility prevents that expenditure of the taxpayers' funds for that. Councilman Jones?
Historically speaking, we had between the city council, not the city council, excuse me, Chamber of Commerce, and took on an events coordinator position to have recreational stuff going on, and took money from
4B.
different 4B, the hotel motel tax, I believe, we got a little piece of
No,
that.
no, it was from the 4B money.
Was it all 4B?
Yes,
But
I
anyway,
was on that board.
you know, we kind of beat up that girl as far as she put on a huge 4th of July event, and weather had it 107 degrees, 105 degrees out there on July 4th. It kind of fell apart and didn't do well. We don't want to, I don't mind having an organization or having a person like that, and I think there's plenty of ways to get money to it, to do it, legal ways. But again, it's going to take a lot of support, and realize you're going to spend $40,000 on an individual, and then money's toward that event.
Okay, Councilwoman Ramsey's next on the...
I agree at some point we do need to have this committee. I'm not against that. But I really think if we would just be like the office manager. This event coordinator, whatever you want that person's title to be, would be under the direction, because it is Oakdale money. We have a line item that's always been for bringing in entertainment and promotion of events. Now, I've never heard, never read that it's illegal to do that. And that's something that I'd like to check with our attorney regarding. But as a part of that, I think last year we put $75,000 in there, is that correct?
Yeah, that's what the budget says.
Right. So this person could be a contract person too. They wouldn't have to qualify. They could work 30 hours and be, and still have taxes out, but they would not, the weeks, But it can be worked out of what's in that budget to bring in that event coordinator to be able to work, and Mr. Iman would have forms of what they would have to be responsible for filling out. They would be the one responsible to contact the bands and make sure they've sent in their form and their W-9s, and by the way, I think your question was, all those people need to get W-9s. But this person would be able to promote this town. That with every group that came in, every customer that came in, just to oversee, we have the Glen Rose magazine. It's free. I think when people check in and come in, they ought to be given that magazine. They ought to be told about the Glen Rose app. So that because it says in our thing about promoting growth in our towns and so forth. I just feel like we need to promote the small museum that's in the office area because it reflects some of the history. Even if we make changes in the building, we still need to kind of do that. But I am passionate about having the events. David, I don't mean this negative. You're not a social butterfly. You're not a people person. You're not comfortable making those kinds of contacts. And it shouldn't be put on you to do that. You need to have someone in there that is enthusiastic, knows how to be accountable, and that you can work with to do this kind of thing. So that you can concentrate on all the repair and maintenance that has not been done in years. So I'm going to be very passionate about pushing for this.
Councilman Marquez?
For the promotion side of a festival and organization, the city should not be in the business of promoting that within that. Now, if it was co-sponsored between the city, I would understand, but the CVB, we should utilize that more to incorporate these long existing. In the last council meeting, there was 3 grants that came up. One got approved in the next council meeting. On Monday, we have 2 more to approve, or disapprove in their grants. Of course, we'll approve it. This is good. But my question is, with because I've only been on the council, have we seen the Biloxi River Bluegrass request grants for promotions under the CVB?
Okay, how it's worked in the past is that because the city puts it on, the CVB has been responsible, this is before Kelly came on, but the CVB has been responsible for doing all the printing, all the advertising, and all the promotion. Okay, it came out of CVB's budget. That's what's happened in the past. This coordinator, or whatever you want to call them, would be the one to work with the CVB director, whomever it is, to be able to draw on those that line item for promotions, the line items for advertising. Oakdale's advertising budget should be only for in my opinion, only for promoting Oakdale to bring people in. The advertising out in the magazines, in the RVs, or whatever.
Oakdale belongs to the city and to the citizens. To have it separated within the promotions is kind of, even with it, Oakdale Park, the city of Glen Rose. When it says produced by Oakdale Park, it should always say the city of Glen Rose. If you bring it to a wider spectrum, you're going to get better results. Even with the future wood carvers or the dueling aces within the city limits, every organization that brings a festival or a conference or a convention should go through the CVB. Now, they are the liaison between the two. Am I saying that right? Liaison.
Yep.
Between the two, and they're the ones that coordinate within the city, the park manager, the logistics, the utility, the police. There should be that representation, kind of like that handoff between but bringing in the CVB. I firmly believe that that line number was there for promotions. I can't say specifically it was there for, the bluegrass or the dulcimer or the wood carvers, because the line number should never say that, and it doesn't. But in the future, we do have those reoccurring events, and as of right now, do we have in writing anywhere that states that these are our sponsored events within the city? Like, do we say, hey,
No.
this is
We don't-
it, but it's.
The only sponsored event we have that the city sponsors is the Bluegrass. The Bluegrass Festival, not the Bluegrass thing, but the Bluegrass Festival that's held in the fall and the spring. That is a city-sponsored event, correct, David? Because you and I had that discussion when it started. But the event line, entertainment line, whatever it is on there, was put in there to bring in entertainment to Oakdale for the citizens, for the taxpayers, for the people that are staying at the park, and to bring in outside people. And
What I'm trying to get to real quick is that you provide the funds, but you don't have the actual mechanism to spend those funds, like the people, like you're saying, the coordinators.
Ms. Ryman, to your knowledge, is there any either ordinance or resolution that has been passed by the council that authorizes, that specifies that sponsorship and designates authorization or use of? City administrator, city secretary?
I haven't seen anything that specifically delineates and says the city Bluegrass Festival is the city of Glenrose. It's by word of mouth. It's been told numerous occasions, this is a city festival, you're responsible for everything that goes on with it. I've seen nothing that in writing or that was council authorized, approved, or whatever. It's just been by word of mouth. That's our responsibility.
And through structure, money has been put into the budget to that end based on, city secretary?
There's the budget, there's the budget line item for events. And in that budget line item for events, there's been Boo in the Park charged to it, there have been Christmas lights charged to it. Dulcimer Festival related items charged to it, and
Summer concert series.
summer concert series. This year and past years, that, I've looked through the history, trying to figure out, okay, I've got this, now where do I charge this to?
Right.
Those kinds of things, and bluegrass.
So-
Those types of things have come out of that event's budget line.
Okay, so then my question would be, is there some document that we know of that we're just not aware of, haven't been able to locate or whatever, or any of the council members that would authorize the city to expend taxpayer money to purchase a raffle item to give to an event to raffle off?
The budget line item would be the only thing I would know that's available for that. Specifics, no, I don't know.
Okay, so we don't.
And, I would be curious to know, I don't want to open a can of worms, but what the auditors have said in the past years about funds expended. I don't have any idea.
A couple, 2, 3 hands here. Start at the far end. Councilman Jones?
Yeah, my vision on how the budgeting, we want to work on this is we've got Oakdale Park Promotions, which if it's going to be catering to groups that come from outside of Glenrose, then those should be funded by CVB and advertised and promoted, because they're specialists at running the ads and making all those contacts, bringing in bluegrass, bringing in the dulcimer, bringing in whatever festival we want. But if it's a local event, such as Splash Day, such as even the local summer concert series, that's going to be his promotions internally. He may get help from the CVB just to know how to do it, but again, we're catering to our local audience with a lot of the things at Oakdale. But if it's going to be catering to outside the county and bring in people, then that's a CDB and delineate it that way.
But I think we're also talking beyond just promotion. We're talking about actual paying for the event. The participants, the bands, et cetera. Okay?
Let me go back to that. If it's going to put heads in beds, we use CPB money. If it's not going to be putting heads in beds because it's all local, then it's no Oakdale budget.
That's true. Okay, Councilman Montrose?
I'm not trying to, restrict, or I would like to see something, if we could create a day within the city, a bluegrass day, an official statute. Start saying, hey, this is a bluegrass day, create a proclamation that says, hey, this is a bluegrass day or bluegrass week. Then we could use that to promote, this is a bluegrass week. I don't know if we could, because that, we'd have to go through the city administrator, but I know the mayor can create a proclamation saying, this is bluegrass week, this is not a bluegrass week within the city. And that'll show more of a commitment to not only bluegrass itself, because that's what's within the city, but also saying, hey, association, we see you, we would like to involve you more, not just within the park. Like I said before, this has been here since 1972, and that's big. But in 2010, when it became public again, that's a city. You're not dealing with a private entity. You're dealing with the city, the whole city. That's the residents everywhere. And if this is a city park now, then we have to figure out where we properly put these channels through. And it might be better. I mean, the CBB has connections everywhere. They're going to a conference pretty soon, and they should have a display or something.
Councilwoman Ramsey, she's
Okay.
impatiently waiting.
Yes.
It's her turn.
The CVB budget, okay, is based on the hot tax. And they're giving grants. So there's not a way, unless it's through the city funds, to fund events. Now, the only event that I know that the city is actually funding, putting on the festival is the Bluegrass. The Dulcimer Festival does their own thing, so the coordinator could work with them to make sure that they have what they need. I think, when you dealt with them, they were just, and you developed a form that tells, if you're gonna bring that festival in, this is what you need. Oakdale Park is not another department. Oakdale Park is a business. And I heard someone say, and I wholeheartedly agree, municipalities or even counties should not be in charge of a business. And so when we're looking at Oakdale Park, we've got to look at it as a business. Now, do we want to lease it out? And then that alleviates a lot of things, but then you've got to develop a role model, you've got to consider employees, and so forth. But as far as the events are concerned that are happening in Oakdale Park, to bring people in and the locals in, which was expressed during the public opinion, that's going to have to be someone that's employed by Oakdale Park. And if you have that event coordinator, they contact the bands, or they contact the if you want to have concerts. I'm just throwing things out. They want to have concerts. That promotion of that concert coming in can come out of CBB. The park, the business part of the park, would pay for those bands. Now, does the city want to continue doing the Bluegrass Festivals, sponsoring it? I don't know. The council has to decide that. Like you said, there has to be changes. Oakdale Park is the venue for events. And it is not up to David and to Chester to have to spend their time trying to contact all of these people to come in. So, if we want it to just be an RV park and we want to discount everything, discount all the things that were said this morning, That's your own personal opinion.
Another point that ties into what Mike said, what Sandra said about, you mentioned promotions. We need a definition of promotions versus advertisement, because you have both lines, and this has to do with budget.
The hot tax is, as I'm sure most of you are aware, the hot tax specifically relates to advertising of the community, of events, of localities, of venues, but it's related to advertising.
Right.
And the comptroller's office primarily is the overseer of that, as far as the making sure that folks adhere to it. But it's one of those areas that a number of years ago, the city of Hidalgo down on the border used hotel motel tax to build a statue of a bumblebee. And that created more issues than I have ever seen in one particular area in my entire working career. And it eventually wound up in the Attorney General's office, with the Attorney General's office saying, no, you can't use funds for that type of circumstance. It didn't, the AG opinion didn't go any further than that. It just said, you can't use it to build a statue. Now, had the statue been in place and they were advertising it, absolutely. But they've been very stringent about making sure that those funds, when you collect them, that they are used to put heads in beds. And as I said earlier, because we do have the cabins at Oakdale, certain hot tax monies can be used, and I don't know the proportional amount, but it could be done out there.
So since we have the promotions and the advertising lines at Oakdale Park
Right.
budget, in the Oakdale Park budget, do you think maybe those were originally meant to be funded by hot tax money?
I
Or
don't-
one of them?
I don't know.
That's very
We've got several issues there that,
Very confusing.
with the budgetary part of it, is splitting it out and making sure that we're taking the money out of the right pocket. You know, if the council, if it's the council's desire for us to continue with the support and the sponsorship of the various events that are and have been coming to Oakdale Park, certainly we'll be glad to, and I appreciate your comment about an additional person, a coordinator. As I said earlier, one of the items that's that we discussed earlier about maintenance, the building that needs to be built over the chemical part of and pumps at the swimming pool, David and his crew are going to do that internally. We're not going out to a contractor. We can't be doing that and trying to identify bluegrass band or things like that. I mean, and it's just, we don't deny that it's a good thing. It is. We just simply don't have the ability to carry out all the functions that are going on at Oakdale right now.
Now, for clarification, for those that you do not know, the ticket or button sales that are done by the bluegrass people, they go back into the Oakdale budget to help pay for the bands that come. So I think this last time, didn't it offset the amount of tickets that were sold? I can't remember, we were pretty close.
The fees.
The fees.
Talk about the fees.
No, we were $10 short.
So, but we're pretty close. And that's another thing, if we're gonna do, that's another separate issue, but if we're gonna do it, we need to look at, not giving discounts or, do I believe that is a perk, and Debbie's, they may pick up and throw me in the clinch. As a perk, do I think that council people should receive a button yes. But if the council decided not to do that, you know, I'm not a big bluegrass fan. My husband loved music. He loved Oakdale Park, the music that was in it. So if there was anything music, we went. And for the other events. So, you know, there's some structures within, if we're gonna continue there's some structure things that you know, that you can set the parameters and say, this is the way it's gonna be. Because you or the event, well, actually you, because you're the boss, whether you have an event coordinator or not, you can be the one that there'll be no discounts. You don't get a free button because you're working, selling a t-shirt stand. You don't get a free button if you're volunteering in the concession stand. If you want to volunteer in the concession stand, of course that's not happening now because we got the concessionaires. You don't get a free button, you do that because you want to. Just like the rest of us, we're serving on this council for $10 a meeting because we want to do it, not because of that. So, you know, those are things that we need to consider, you know, on that. But that's the only thing that we're really sponsoring. The other things are coming to us, and it's a matter of, which you don't have time to do, getting those forms filled out, finding out what they need, following up. You would never sleep if you had to do all that.
So,
along with not having time, Chester not having time, David not having time, and probably Teresa not having time, and ultimately me not having time, another thing to consider besides the $10 short on the buttons, and there's a magnitude of administrative hidden costs that nobody sees because there's not a dollar amount tied to it. So.
okay, so what I'm hearing here is, obviously I think everybody is in favor of continuing these events because they are important to the city, okay? But what I'm hearing and we need to determine is what is the specific mechanism that needs to be in place that ensures that the taxpayer money that is expended and hopefully subsequently recouped to bring these events in that we need to put in place.
I think, Mayor, one of the things that we probably would need to do is to consult a financial person who does audits for cities to give us direction on the expenditure of those funds and how they would treat those expenditures in our audit report so that we don't wind up with a hickey on that and we stay in compliance with law. That's one of the things that they would stay on top of and make sure that we have not violated anything that in that regard. You know, I think it can be done. You know, it's going to be one of those things we're just going to need everybody working together on the situation and trying to keep things in the proper perspective and moving down the same trail so that we get to the end gate that everybody wants to be.
And then the next gate would be, as Councilwoman Ramsey says, a dedicated individual to deal with that coordination, because it takes time to touch base with these bands, to touch base with these associations, to put it together. Okay? And probably some admin support for that person, because our admin folks they're taxed. I mean, they're out there to the limit and beyond.
Something you said. Are there people out there that we could contract with that would do like a concessionaire? I mean, we'd have to get details, but that would be willing to bring in the events, okay? They get all the money, and you know, they pay us or just work out something so that we're not into payroll.
Well, let me answer your question. David and I have discussed this quite at length, we have identified an individual who could do the event coordination. They do not live here. It would be a telecommute for a lot of the issues, but that's the case anyway. We're not seeing the bands person to person. But they would be willing to be here on site on a given amount of time each month, each week. But it would require a little bit of work, coordination to get that done. But I think what David and I would like to do is to put together a plan for the council to review and to be able to say yes or no, this is the direction we want to go, and to have that individual come down and talk to the council and tell you what they can do to help move things along.
I think that's a great idea, because that takes it into a whole
It was
other
something
arena.
he said that got
Yeah.
what little part of my brain that works, it just clicks it off. I mean, because that takes away, we'll still have to have some budget money and certain, and that entertainment thing,
But
but,
it's better controlled, it's better, okay?
and they may have more contacts than we have, and et cetera.
You still have to have W-9, you still have to have.
And
a
that would all be,
yeah.
that would all be part of it. I still think we need to find out the mechanism to make sure that we are, whatever the council needs to declare, pass, or whatever, if anything, so that from a taxpayer perspective and a budget, money, fiduciary responsibility perspective, we know we're good, and we're not crossing any lines. Then things should move smoothly.
I'd like, I can, to throw another suggestion off that's just away from this. One of the biggest issues we've had and concerns from citizens and family reunions and some of these other people is using the convention center, and if they have so many, they get it free. Well, I'm just gonna throw a suggestion out. If, in the summer season, if they have 10 cabins or RV sites, they get 50% off of what it is. If they get 20 cabins and RV sites, they get 75% off the price of which, whether they're in half a day or whatever, you know. In the winter season, the 10 cabins and RV sites would get 75% off, and the consideration of the 20 cabins and RV site, they can use it for free. And I'm just suggesting that out because I understand money-wise that we don't need to be giving it for free, but if they could guarantee, if we could develop some kind of plan where there was a discount to use it, if they're staying on site.
Similar to buying block rooms at a hotel, like
Right.
TML and stuff, where you fill this number of rooms, then they'll be discounted X amount. It's just kind of a little bit reverse, or
Right.
different, slightly different tag off on that. Councilman Jones.
Just to tag into that, we've had several family reunions in my family, who've been around for a while too, and they always seem to negotiate a good room rate, but then they turn around and charge us $350 for the convention center. And the year that I had to manage it, I didn't know how much money we were going to be making on rooms or how many were going to book. So I just said, charge the full room rate, and they'd give us the convention center. And we booked it all, and
Yeah.
so there wasn't a discount. We didn't have to figure in discounts, and the convention center was just given to us. So again, meeting the number of rooms, we get the convention
Right,
center.
there,
However you
that's,
want to do
it. Yeah, it's the reverse dovetail of room discount. Go ahead.
David,
Yes, ma'am.
okay, the 20% that's given to the bluegrass people, is that on the monthly thing too? Or is it just for the boat?
Yes, ma'am, to my knowledge, it's given both discounts. What I was told from my first festival back in the spring was that regardless, the bluegrass was about at 20%.
I really want us to look at seriously at the percentages thing.
Yeah.
I mean, I mentioned it, but I just want, it just, When you get old, things just click in your mind real quick and you have to ask.
Yeah, that's what I was told, that bluegrassers
So,
regardless.
but we're gonna look at that, so.
And the other thing is I think that we need to find some method to maintain a clearer accountability or trackability of funds going out and coming in, just so that the city remains on solid,
That's where
paper trail.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying, accountability forms for
Okay.
not just the events, but the money, that every, whether we hire outside people, we need a tracking of all of that, and we've not had that, so.
Councilman Marquez?
Last, for the discussion for the venue for future direction, I would like to see us look at the projection to create a better venue, i.e. parking. Outside, we do have RV people, but parking's become limited. And maybe that's expanding by maybe taking out the RV spots right in front of the convention, and expanding the RV spots to the 5 acres and creating bigger 55-footer capacities. Those angles of the RV spots are kind of, but to create a venue, you would have to have ample parking. And right now, everyone is basically parking far distances or in the grass. That stage was, that stage has been there for what, 40 years now? They created it after 1972. That's what I'm reading. But if you want to create that venue, we also need to make a mechanism where if you create that venue, I've noticed that behind that area with the stage, they create vendors there. And the possibility of creating a vendor flow that not only helps the organization that starts it, but also the park itself, because they pull electricity and they pull other stuff, having canopies or renting canopies to create a venue, so there's less stuff to take care of. Because in the end, it is the structure of the park that you're going to have that Oakdale Park as a whole, we're looking at right now as a venue, but it was created to become a city park for all of us. So bringing a playground so kids can play in a normal day, creating maybe a trail one day, creating a big, more dog park will supplement it as a venue. So.
And tagging on to that and looking forward and possible expansion in that 5 acres, a couple of thoughts.